2008, Lucasfilms would release 2 major theatrical films. These 2 movies would change the course of the company as a whole, and also they happen to be 2 movies I've brought up a lot. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Crystal Skull was a legacy sequel to the production company's 2nd largest franchise, and it made its money for sure, but culturally only received modest success. You see, there are 2 types of filmmakers in our wonderful world of film. There's obviously more than 2, but for the sake of this argument, there's 2. The ones that value themselves based on monetary gain, and the ones that value themselves based on critical feedback. Take a Michael Bay, for example. Everyone that wasn't a Transformers fan or a 10-year-old boy in the 2010s would tell him to his face that his live-action Transformers films sucked. They hated them. Michael responded to this by making about a baker's dozen more films in this series, and then making enough money to build a real-life Transformer, which he still chooses not to do. Maybe they made so much in the box office returns because the immense amount of product placement in those films. Fuck Denny's, all my homies hate Denny's. But for other filmmakers, they can say that the fans don't bother them, that they make movies for themselves, that they do it for the love and passion for the medium. But some of them are lying. Because imagine for a second that you are one of these leading voices in blockbuster filmmaking. You have made, at the very least, 2 famous franchises while working with some of your best friends and some of the most talented auteurs that Hollywood has to offer. You've sat on an idea for so long that you think that only you can make it. You can't trust anyone else. Nobody else sees the vision like you do, and they're all trying to take you down. And then after failed projects and failed marriages and failed capitalistic ventures, you finally, after all these years, have the time and the budget and the technology to make the movies you have always wanted to make. And then after a disastrous and tumultuous production period, on the cusp of a new age, a new era in film with so many young creative voices ready to come out of the woodwork, you release what you believe to be your magnum opus, and people absolutely despise it. I, of course, am talking about Francis Ford Coppola and Megalopolis. Adam Driver's in that movie.
Raider!
Chewie, we're home. Corny ass goofball. All right, so obviously I'm lying, of course. I'm actually gonna talk about George Lucas. Again, whose last 4 franchise films were received so poorly, he had no choice but to sell it off to the figure solely responsible towards making nothing but terrible and lifeless and soulless pieces of garbage and slop in the modern era. Dave Filoni. But then that movie bombed, so then they canceled Clone Wars and said, fuck it, let's sell to Disney.
I own all this shit now! I own the Death Star! I own Tatooine! It's all mine!
Now, selling to Disney, as we now well know, is not a major shock. Even back then, beyond the tonal whiplash, it was to be expected. While Disney did buy the rights to the Muppets in 2004, after Jim Henson's death, it was not a posthumous decision made by his estate to greedily squeeze more money out of the brand. No, this isn't like a Dr. Seuss situation. Merry Christmas! I'm like the anti-Grinch in this video. Jim Henson wanted to sell to Disney because he wanted his characters to live on forever, beyond his human existence and futile mistakes. In the modern era of oligarchies and monopolies, I don't think we look upon corporate mergers with as rose-tinted glasses. I'm actually recording it the day that Netflix announced that they may probably be buying Warner Brothers, and then immediately turned around and said, like, yeah, you know, releasing movies only in theaters is real anti-consumer. So never mind, I can't say that on YouTube. But in 2025, the idea of a genius savant director selling off his creative vision to greedy Disney. It's a political cartoon where Disney's holding a pitchfork. It's that image of evil Mickey Mouse from that one Disney Halloween cartoon. And then also Mario, that specific Mario doll looking away, looking really sad, and his mouth is upside down. Nintendo Switch 2 fails? But I don't know. If I thought I was at the end of my life, would I want to sell off my characters to a company I trusted? It's not like Disney has sullied the name of the Muppets. It's actually quite the opposite. They just refuse to use them. I'm not believing that Muppet reboot until I see it on my TV screen. In the spaceship I built from puzzle pieces I found on the ground. Have you guys seen that episode of The Muppet Show where the special guest is both real actor Mark Hamill and fake character Luke Skywalker? Also Chewbacca and R2 and C-3PO, but I guess they don't get credits because they're costumed individuals and they don't deserve our respect. Even in the holiday special, R2-D2 is credited as being played by himself. Anyway, the episode premiered only 3 months before The Empire Strikes Back dropped in theaters. You guys remember when movies would stay in theaters for like months? Netflix wants to kill that idea. Yeah, you know, Sinners, One Battle After Another, Superman. What if they were in theaters for 2 days and then they went on Netflix? I know there's more pressing matters in 2025, but I think my least favorite type of person is the kind of person that waits for a movie they want to see to come to streaming. Yeah, I spit on you. Oh, we don't know how to get young people to come to the movie theater. They don't want to go anymore. Maybe have the movie in theaters longer than 2 weeks. This is because both Star Wars and The Muppet Show were being filmed in the United Kingdom at the time, even being described as being filmed across the street from each other. But also, as we well know, Frank Oz, famous Muppet puppeteer, not only did the voice work for Yoda, but also the puppet's direction. Also, footage from Indiana Jones was used in a Muppet Babies episode before the film even left theaters because of their close working relationship. Which raises an important question. Is Yoda a Muppet? Everyone has their own opinion on what they believe to be the heart of Star Wars. Is it the locations, the music, the choreography, the computer-generated Jabba the Hutt? I've made my distaste for the prequel films known. Doesn't mean I don't love them, I just don't think they're good movies. And sure, there's a little twinge of nostalgia there as well. I like the era, but I think from a filmmaking standpoint, they are complete and utter failures. But if you think how I feel about them is way too harsh in the year of our Lord 2025, the sentiment in the 2010s was way, way worse. Morale was very low. To me, the biggest heap to get over is that the prequel was set up and made entirely because of advancements in computer-generated effects and was built entirely on that idea and on a blue screen. Not me, though. I'm all about physical sets now. The comparison seems arbitrary since every major film nowadays is filmed on one giant screen. Even The Mandalorian is just standing in front of a Jumbotron. But at least Baby Yoda is a puppet. But to me, that's what Star Wars is. The Muppets. That's when the saga lost its practical magic. The Henson puppets and animatronics and physical sets, they breathe life into this universe. I'm not even saying this as a Muppet fan. These creatures don't feel like puppets. They feel like living, breathing characters. Frank Oz's instructions early on were to slow down the Yoda movements as much as possible. This isn't Kermit waving his arms around. This is an old sage withered by the horrors around him. All of that to say, The Muppet Show episodes ends with the Star Wars characters and the Muppet characters singing "When You Wish Upon a Star" while the Disney castle basks in the background.
The misty mountains cold.
October 30th, 2012, after years and years of failed personal projects, Lucasfilm is sold to the Disney Corporation for $4 billion. And this is years before they would acquire the entirety of 20th Century Fox in 2019. And this moment in history is looked back on with horror. An eclectic savant sells his soul to a company that has no soul. And in the modern era, it's easy to see why so many share that sentiment. I don't love Lucas as a filmmaker, but I sure love him more than I love monopolies. Now it all seems so cynical. But at the time, as a child, I loved the Lego Star Wars video games. The 2 separate games released for the 6th generation of the video game consoles, each containing separate trilogies. This is how I engaged with Star Wars. This is how the story was first told to me. The movies themselves were secondary. So much so that one day, after arriving home on the school bus, I think it was spring, let's say May, based on the flora, I threw my backpack to the ground, flopped in a sea of dandelions, picked one of those weeds out of the grass, closed my eyes, held it close to my mouth, and blew those seeds all around the garden. And I secretly wished to myself, I wish they would make 3 more Star Wars movies so that I could get a 3rd Lego Star Wars game. The same year, hit TV show Lost would air its final episode after years and years of building up a mystery and being one of the most exciting new shows on television. The show ends with the answer to the years-long mystery being nothing but the safest, least interesting, double-down, circle-back mystery box of an ending. But its creator, J.J. Abrams, was already preparing for bigger and better things. Mission Impossible 3 revitalized the series. After J.J. Abrams' second Star Trek film, Star Trek: Into Darkness, which I believe I actually saw in theaters, the dust had cleared on the disappointment of the ending of Lost, and J.J. has come back into the good graces of the people and was being offered projects left and right. He was originally gonna direct the film adaptation of Wicked and the film adaptation of Killers of the Flower Moon, but in 2013, J.J. was offered the biggest franchise of his career. No offense to Star Trek. I always hear this story phrased as he was offered Star Wars, but he was always only intended to direct one movie. The first movie. Episode 7. Which means that JJ had to drop every other project he was working on, every prior engagement, even the big one that required a lot of moving pieces.
When you hear that there's any kind of appreciation or influence, from the stuff that we do, and I would say that, it's something that I think would be fun to work with you on, and we have,
So what we're actually doing here, and most of you have probably guessed, is we're recapitulating a series of conversations that have been going on. This is what happens when game and movie people get together. And we sort of reached the point where we decided that we needed to do more than talk.
Yeah, and there's an idea that we have for a game that we'd like to work with Valve on.
Yeah, and we're super excited about that. And we're also interested in working with you guys on movies. So we're going to try to figure out if we can make a Portal movie or a Half-Life movie together.
Yep.
But it's really time for us to, and I think for our industries, to stop talking about potentials and try to really execute on them. So thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Although this DICE Summit was held after Abrams was announced as the director of the new Star Wars project, his relationship with Valve had been going for years now. Someone's playing Half-Life and Lost. There is a Lost Easter egg hidden in Half-Life 2. There was an entire interactive playable trailer experience for Super 8 inside Portal 2. This launched with the game. It was 2011. Even if you don't like this movie, we can at the very least say that J.J. Abrams directing a Star Wars movie saved us from getting a live-action Portal movie in 2013. Thank God. Could you imagine? Nowadays, you guys just put Ella Purnell in an orange jumpsuit and call it a day. Because still, to this day, JJ attests that this project was not canceled, and they are still working on the Portal movie. I can only see JJ Abrams kill so many of my favorite franchises. I know they're gonna make her talk. I know they're gonna make her talk out loud. I sound way nerdier when I'm sick. I'm tanking through it, but I sound like a Ray William Johnson character. But morale is as high as it could be in 2013. The movie's moving forward, it has a director, and a new Battlefront game is teased. I never really got into the Battlefront games. I mean, I never got any Battlefront games. I played them exclusively at my friend's house on their PS2. It didn't matter that it was Star Wars, that you could play as Star Wars characters in the Star Wars universe. To me, it was still just a shooter game. I didn't really like shooter games, and I still don't, with a few exceptions. Like the game where you shoot holes. Not bullet holes. I've talked about this before, but looking back, I really do think the games and the shows were what faltered to hold up this new trilogy era. Like, there were comics and toys and theme parks, I guess, but the reason I feel so strongly attached to that prequel era can't just be nostalgia for the films. It's that I got to play those movies as a shooter, as a Lego, as a busted movie tie-in game. The Clone Wars, with all its flaws, revised the history and the perception of this trilogy near single-handedly. When are we gonna get our sequel-era Clone Wars? Certainly not in the 2010s. No, we're too busy getting another shooter set in the original trilogy, and Cal Kestis is fighting Darth Vader again. I'm cynical now because I'm a very old man, but if you asked a 12-year-old Kid Ultra what he thought, hashtag in JJ we trust.
In JJ we trust. In JJ we trust.
In JJ we trust.
In JJ we trust.
In JJ we trust.
In JJ we trust.
In JJ we trust.
In JJ we trust.
Durango, México. En JJ confiamos.
So a lot like Super Smash Bros. And that hype cycle, I've always been watching them, feeling them, playing them, engaging with these pieces that meant a lot to me. But in the 2010s, that's when I really began engaging with the speculation cycle online. The first era I engaged properly with hype. That's too much chess. Oh, there's a new Pokemon region coming out? What's this Red Fox thing? Oh, there's a new Smash Bros. Game coming out? I went through psychosis for 3 years. This was the first time in my life I wasn't just watching cartoons. I was watching cartoons and then going online to see what my favorite cartoon reviewer said about said cartoon. Maybe I'm dating this video, but I've been seeing a lot of people on my feed post clips from Legends of Chamberlain Heights, whatever it's called. And it's crazy to think that the greatest issue facing the cartoon community in the 2010s was a cartoon that just kind of unfunny. Watching trailer breakdowns and Easter egg compilations and Marvel movies, I guess. But we're not here to talk about Marvel or cartoons or Pokemon or Smash Bros or YouTubers. No, wait, oh, sorry. Oh, no, we are here to talk about YouTubers. 2014 would be the year that the movie began to become real. It started to settle in that we would be seeing a new Star Wars film in theaters, and the news cycle immediately ramped up as well. April 2014, a black and white photo was shared of the cast and crew gathered around in chairs discussing the upcoming project. Sat the film's director, J.J. Abrams, the new president of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, producer Brian Burke, the film's supposed writer in Lawrence Kasdan, who previously worked on the screenplays for The Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Return of the Jedi, also apparently Shadows of the Empire, but only the video game, not the tie-in books. Returning cast members Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Peter Mayhew, Anthony Daniels, and Mark Hamill. I have to assume R2 is being played by himself. Again, no respect. So beyond this original image, we didn't really know much about Episode 7, beyond it having to be set after the original trilogy. I mean, after the success of the first Star Wars film, George Lucas said that he actually wanted to make 3 distinct trilogies of 3 separate eras, but sort of changed his tune after losing his appetite while working on Return of the Jedi. Say what you will about George Lucas. I have several times over. Say what you will about George Lucas in the 80s, but the man knew his limitations. Despite making the prequel films in the director's chair surrounded by nothing but yes men, I don't think he actually enjoys directing. I think most would agree, even prequel fans, that bar none, the best Star Wars film is The Empire Strikes Back. And that one was directed by Irvin Kershner. He didn't even want to direct the finale to the original trilogy. He begged all of his friends, anyone else, to do it.
And I came into an office and there was George. And he talked with me for a little bit, and then he said, I want to show you something. Now, right about in this time, I started getting a little bit of a headache. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. So he took me upstairs, and he showed me these things called Wookiees. And now this headache is getting stronger. Took me for a ride in his Ferrari for a lunch. And George is kind of short, so his seat was way back, and he was almost laying down in the car. We were flying through this little town up in Northern California. Bless his heart, I told him on the phone the next day that he should direct it. It's his film. He invented everything about it. But he doesn't really love directing.
That's not to say that Lucas didn't have plans for a sequel trilogy after starting work on the prequels. It's just that the prequels weren't received very well. Something about Han and Leia having a kid who turns to the dark side after Luke failed his training, and then George Lucas would commit the cardinal, unforgivable sin of killing off childhood hero Luke Skywalker. How fucking dare he? The era following the release of the original trilogy, several Star Wars novels were released to the public featuring fan favorite characters like Grand Admiral Thrawn. There was... I tried reading these books in grade school, and maybe I just wasn't at the proper reading level to comprehend them. But I fucking hated these. They were clearly written by people who had experience writing science fiction, but didn't quite grasp the world of Star Wars. Because despite being set in space with futuristic technology, everything you love about Star Wars is either a fantasy story or a samurai film. A wizard gives a magic sword to a kid destined for greatness with a magical power he uses to take down an empire. You can call it a Dune ripoff all you want. It's clearly more Excalibur. This would be the first confirmation that all of the characters from the original trilogy who are still alive would be making their triumphant return. Except for R2, I guess. I guess his actor's still trapped inside that machine. What makes Star Wars great is that the cast is often made up of relative unknowns and Harrison Ford. Worth noting that Harrison Ford famously wanted his character to die after The Empire Strikes Back. He wanted out of the franchise, which is why his character is literally and figuratively put on ice between films. They didn't know if they were gonna defrost him, and then he wanted his character to die again after coming back in Return of the Jedi, which makes sense because his character has nothing to do after escaping Jabba's palace. So much so that he allegedly said that he would never return to Star Wars unless they promised to kill off his famous character. Take of that what you will. But then the prequels had to ruin this by casting Liam Neeson and Samuel L. Jackson.
It's your lightsaber color.
Oh, well, good guys are green and blue, bad guys are red. That's just the way it works.
No purple left?
You might get purple.
I actually rewatched the prequels not that long ago, I think earlier this year as well. And if you asked a teenage me, I would tell you that Qui-Gon is the most pointless character, and you could honestly just skip the Phantom Menace altogether. But upon my rewatch, Qui-Gon is like the only interesting part of that trilogy, and after he dies, it just gets depressing. The new age of Star Wars stars, made up of relative unknowns at the time, like Oscar Isaac, John Boyega, and Daisy Ridley. I didn't even know this, but while most of the new cast was averaging around their 30s or 40s, John Boyega and Daisy Ridley were 22 when this picture was taken. You want to know what I was doing when I was 22? I was watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars for a YouTube video. And I was sick even back then. Then we have semi-popular names like Adam Driver from Girls, Domhnall Gleeson from Harry Potter, and Andy Serkis, who most publications credited for his role as Gollum in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And I guess that makes sense, that's the most famous trilogy, but Rise of the Planet of the Apes had been out for years now, and he's ostensibly the lead in that. I mean, I guess you could argue that James Franco is the lead. My favorite part of this movie is when James Franco is giving a speech about how his new discovery can cure all of these life-ruining mental ailments, and then autism also flashes on the screen. Brian Cox, what are you doing here?
Who wants to smell Greg's finger, eh? Guess the scent. Win $1.
This image alone caused rampant speculation and dream weaving. Harrison Ford is discussing with Daisy Ridley. Could she be his daughter? Is he going to pass the torch to her? Oscar and John seem to be getting along well. Andy Serkis is most famous for playing motion captured characters. He's the best when it comes to suits with balls on them. Could he be playing some type of alien? Or Bug, or a CG Lando Calrissian? Mark and Anthony are probably talking about how much they miss R2-D2, and what is wrong with Adam Driver. By this point, not to say that every Star Wars film was exactly the same, but there were tropes you could expect. There's like two guys and a girl, and one of the guys likes the girl while the other guy is more focused on getting a job done, and sometimes there's a tall alien, and also C-3PO and R2-D2 are there. So already something missing from this picture, which resulted in fan-made posters like this, and also this. Yes, Daisy Ridley will play a princess because she is a lady, and Adam Driver is, I don't know, Boba Fett, I guess. And now, the movie starts filming in a couple weeks. Breaking news, Mark Hamill, Daisy Ridley, and director J.J. Abrams were spotted filming on Scialig Michael, an uninhabited rocky island cliff face off the coast of Ireland. I mean, look at these stone walkways, spiky cliffs, beautiful blue waves. Which raises two questions. First question, how were they spotted there? Who else was there? Did they have a telescope from a different island? And two, what purpose does this island serve in the movie? I mean, if I was a filmmaker and I had the opportunity to film here, I'd set my entire movie on this island. Or at least a third of it. I know I'm trying my best not to spoil anything beyond 2014, right? But I know the island wasn't made for the movie, but goddamn is it beautiful. That's like my Shire. Like how people keep going to New Zealand because they like Lord of the Rings. Are people allowed here? Because I feel like I grew up on this island.
Breaking news, Harrison Ford has sustained an injury on set. Breaking news again, Rian Johnson is announced for the director of the second film in this trilogy.
Okay, so I guess JJ isn't directing the whole trilogy and instead just kicking it off, which is honestly a pretty safe bet. As we know from history, JJ Abrams is very good at setting up mysteries, but when it comes to paying them off, mystery box. But it's not like he's solely writing the film. He's mainly there to adapt the script to screen. Even more films were announced. 2 spin-offs led by Gareth Edwards, best known for directing the 2014 Godzilla that everyone memed on for only featuring 10 minutes where Godzilla is on the screen, as if that is not a stylistic point. That being said, the current rumor circulating is that he's actually going to be directing a solo Boba Fett film, who is dead. He's dead. He died. We saw him dead, he died. Robot chicken ass movie. And the other spinoff to be directed by Josh Trank. This one I was excited about. I had seen Godzilla and I had heard about Looper, but Chronicle is the coolest movie to an 11-year-old. Sure, the found footage architecture kind of falls apart in the final act of the movie, but it has an edgy antagonist named Andrew. And again, the coolest thing to an 11-year-old. Luckily, at the time, Trank was in post-production work for the Fantastic Four reboot made in the 2010s.
Oh, uh-oh.
The same summer, Disney released a 7-minute teaser for their new cartoon, Star Wars Rebels, a CG animated cartoon made by the team behind Star Wars The Clone Wars to usher in the new era. No longer would the Clone Wars continue. Now, we are in the original trilogy. Again, I still haven't seen this cartoon. Ezra doesn't move me. Feel nothing for this child. Breaking news, Kevin Smith said he visited the set of episode 7 and burst into tears when he saw the Millennium Falcon. I'm not one of those toxic guys that's like, oh my god, crying, really? This would be a really heartwarming story if it wasn't Kevin Smith. This guy cries at every movie. I mean, I guess that's the emotional nirvana you reach if your white's clit brown taint area still pones your dick. He tweeted it, I didn't write that. Also, sure, now we know the Millennium Falcon's in the movie. An image of what looks to be a new model of Stormtrooper helmet leaks to the public. Potentially concerning. This could just end up being one of those modern franchise movies where they're just doing their best to revitalize the magic and remind you of the movie you like. By this point, the entirety of the Hobbit trilogy had been in theaters, a trilogy that was originally supposed to be a duology based on a book about this thing. And the same year, 2014, trailers for a sequel to Jurassic Park, but not a sequel to the sequel, or a sequel to the sequel after that, which looks basically like Jurassic Park, but somehow with more computer-generated effects. The 2010s marked a shift in pop culture where very, very soon in the middle of the decade, everything just became the 80s. We got new Star Wars and Jurassic World. I know Jurassic Park came out in the 90s, but it was the very beginning, so it's the tail end of the 80s. I'll still count it. And then shortly thereafter, the next year, we got Stranger Things and new Ghostbusters. I have no opinion on Ghostbusters 2016. I think if you meet someone in 2025 with strong feelings about this movie, that should be a cause for concern. It's crazy how fast we burn out these franchises. Like, I didn't grow up with Jurassic Park, but this trailer, the Jurassic World trailer, still makes me feel something. The sweeping landscape, the active participancy, the music, the John Williams. I'm not here to tell you that Jurassic World 2015 is leagues better than Jurassic World subtitled 2025, because it's not. I actually think the new one's better just marginally because of the cast, but marginally. The magic just isn't there. I feel nothing.
Shortly after this, Colin Trevorrow, director of Jurassic World, would be announced as the slated director of Episode 9. We'll see where that goes.
There is currently a trailer playing in theaters right now for a Star Wars film in theaters. The first Star Wars film to show in theaters in 7 years. And it makes me feel apathetic. The trailer is just so flat and bland, and Baby Yoda's on the poster 3 times, and it... Listen, to truly prove my point...
November 2014, in very quick succession, we got a title announced for the film. It would be known as Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. And then 20 days later, the first teaser.
There has been an awakening on top of the sandy dunes of the desert. A young sweaty man in a stormtrooper costume lunges into frame. Cut. A small orange droid on a soccer ball running through presumably the same desert. Cut. Battalion of stormtroopers being hauled inside some kind of carrier. The light flashes as the machine undulates. It's shot like a traditional war film. The door opens. Cut. Homeless chick drives away on the new land speeder. Or I guess it's technically more old. Cut. Young fighter pilot messes with the buttons on his ship deck and the rest of the fleet fly close to the coast. Cut. A man drenched in a black coat lunges out his arm, revealing a lightsaber. Crackling red light emits from it. Unstable. And then a hilt. Whoa. Do people know about this?
The Falcon! The Millennium Falcon! It's the Millennium Falcon! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh god! I gotta play with my Star Wars toys! Oh god!
Goodness.
Oh, come on. That was not scary.
Diversity.
Well, yeah. I can't tell if she's trying to be sarcastic or not. Did this pass for progressive in 2014?
I looked at this. There isn't anything there. I mean, it's little snippets that it's just like, can you give us a little bit more?
What the fuck is Tay Zonde doing here? Because he wasn't anywhere in the actual reaction.
Did you like the prequels?
I like all of them.
You know what? Internet's gonna go out on a limb here and say they weren't as bad as everyone said that they were, okay?
I knew there was a reason I didn't trust you, Matthew.
Shortly thereafter, the names of the new cast of characters were revealed via these fake top card graphics using shots from the teaser. I just think it's cute.
Finn, the sweaty stormtrooper, Rey, the junkyard dog, Poe, the button pusher, BB-8, the droid ball, and Kylo Ren, the Dark Knight. I won't lie to you. As you could tell by my outfit, I thought Kylo Ren was so fucking cool. Like, even before the movie came out, I know I've said this before, but coming up to 2015 is the release of The Force Awakens, but also the year I started playing Grand Theft Auto Online. And in the winter inside the game, I immediately threw together an outfit to my closest approximation of the character, which I have on both my save files to this day. A little peek behind the curtain, my original plan for 2026 was to have some, like, filler video about Grand Theft Auto in June so that I could play the new game non-stop after its release in May, and now I still don't have anything planned for June. Sort of exciting in a way to not know what I'm gonna do that month.
And as 2014 marches to a close, we step ever so closer to the announced release date of this film, December 18th, 2015, and the internet reacted accordingly. It's 2014 on YouTube, so I guess you get what you pay for.
It shows this hooded figure in a black robe, and he pops out his lightsaber. It's all, but what I love about this shit is when that lightsaber popped out, it's like you just feel it, like, oh man.
All in all, I'm just really excited to be doing a lot of Star Wars movie videos. It's been a long time, but this has definitely reignited my interest in the franchise.
The character also is rumored to be Force sensitive, and will possibly be trained under Luke Skywalker at some point, but that remains to be seen.
We've stolen the enemy's fighter. There's no longer any reason to fear. Presenting the Light Star.
Someone's made a clone of Palpatine.
This clone makes the original Palpatine look nice.
Chewie's dead.
So of course it opens on Tatooine. This motherfucker scared the hell out of me when he popped up in the screen, because I'm like, what's going on here? I don't see shit. And then all of a sudden, John Boyega.
Das war ein Befehl! Der Angriff Steiners war ein Befehl! Wer schickt sie? Dass sie es wagen, sich meinen Befehl zu widersetzen!
I remember it like it was 10 years ago.
The second teaser drops in April, ahead of Disney's Star Wars Showcase at Comic-Con, with a voiceover from an aged Mark Hamill retelling tales of the Force, how it courses through his family's veins, over a shot of a near burnt to crisp Darth Vader helmet. Is that from the Death Star? How'd they get that? Did the Ewoks have it? Chewie, we're home. Star Wars! Holy shit.
Before we got cast photo or leaks of principal photography, Accidentally or Otherwise Vanity Fair published an article interviewing Andy Serkis and naming his character in the film firmly as Supreme Leader Snoke.
But now we're mere months separated from the actual release of this film in theaters. Teasers will lead to trailers, and trailers will lead to the press cycle. Imagine for a second, and I'm going to be saying this a lot throughout this video, imagine you are Disney, and you are in charge of this film. You really only have one option to win back all those scorned audience members that hated the prequels. And Matt Pat, I guess. I know that technically there are two options. There's always a yes and a no, but I would say the best option in the modern era, going to Comic-Con 2015 with the film's producer, writer, and director, and have them walk out an animatronic puppet creature to prove that the root of this film is to go back to practical basics. Regardless of how you feel about the story or the performances in the prequels, you gotta agree that CG is real egregious in that. This film, the upcoming one, The Force Awakens, sort of acts as an apology. I know that I said I was already locked into the press cycle when it came to teasers and trailers and instantly zoned in on Kylo Ren, thinking it was the coolest thing ever, but that's not entirely true. The thing that really grabbed me, I was instantly enamored by this film ahead of its release, was watching this Comic-Con presentation on my sticky iPod Touch in my bedroom upstairs and seeing that monster walk across the stage. And that's when it clicked for me.
Holy shit, Star Wars is Muppets again?
Grew up with the original Star Wars, and it was part of the charm of the movie, was being able to see these characters look as though they had come to life. And I think CG certainly has its place, but seeing a practical effect, I mean, even seeing him wiggle his nose in that way, it does something emotionally that reminds us of the first time we saw Star Wars.
And the friends.
And the little friends along the side.
The idea was hit over and over. This was the purpose of the film. Every JJ interview, he talks about how the original film felt so real to him because of location filming. Almost every interview I could find, including the Comic-Con panel itself, Daisy Ridley and John Boyega talk about not only how hot it was to film in the desert, but also the heat of the large explosion that actually happened feet away from them. The explosion teaser was actually first shown off on Jimmy Kimmel's late night show, followed up by a Star Wars acapella performed by the cast of the film on Jimmy Fallon's show. I had to rewrite this bit because I constantly forget they're not the same person. But if you were a fan of popular sci-fi nerd shit at the time, 2014, 2015, like me, then you knew that Graham Norton was where it was at. I'm serious. As a kid who was obsessed with Marvel and Star Wars and Doctor Who at the time, I would exclusively watch the British late night show. How come American interview shows haven't gotten around to the meta of just having a bunch of actors sit on the same couch and only interjecting when they have something funny to say? It also helps that he's good friends with Carrie Fisher. That cannot be said about most people. Acapella medleys had kind of become Fallon's thing by this point, and in 2015, I was the perfect mark for this. Just started Steven Universe, just got into Hamilton and Heathers. Undertale is around somewhere. The video that did go triple platinum on my original series iPod Touch was this paint video, recapping the entirety of Star Wars up to this point through song. It sort of has the Brentalfloss effect, where I can't really hear the original track anymore without thinking of there once was a boy slave. To this day, the extent of what I know about Harry Potter comes from this recap song and like maybe Harry Potter Puppet Pals. I remember one time in my 7th grade history class, there was a kid sitting in front of me singing the entirety of Ever After Ever to our teacher. And I thought it was so cringe, even though I liked that video. However, technically Darth Vader's first appearance on the Paint channel was in the movie Villain Medley, made up of Lady Gaga parodies.
I'm a real bad man, you're dead unless you somehow stop me. Cause I'm a Nazi, now I'm a mastermind. I won't stop until those Jews are mine.
What the hell? It's crazy that even as long ago as 2015, that Nazis were so out of fashion that we could joke about them being bumbling buffoons without any real-world repercussions. And then Ghostbusters changed everything. Lest we forget the epic rap battle. Go ahead and give that the pin of shame, Andrew, because nothing in this video is going to top the whiplash of that Nazi. It's impossible. J.J. Abrams also revealed on Jimmy Kimmel that the very first spoken line of this movie is this. And when pressed about it by Kevin McCarthy, he revealed that the next line after would be will. This will. The opening line of this film needs to be as impactful as the wait.
Oh, with the Ewoks. I mean, yes, Finn would just be with the Ewoks, just trying to help them out. That would be fun. That would be fun.
After this point, there would be a lot of teasers and trailers, but they wouldn't feature a whole lot of new scenes. This second or third trailer is the one that's ingrained into my skull. Opening with the soft piano as Rey scavenges for parts in a destroyed starship, met with the line, "Who are you?" Like even more so than the Chewie, "We're home" line. Which will make sense if I saw this trailer over and over. This is the first line in it. Implying what? That I stopped the trailer halfway through? But this doesn't even account for it's true. All of it. Whoa, the burnt Darth Vader helmet. Would you look at that laser? Now that is a classic J.J. Abrams lens flare. The man loves his flare. I don't know why it's become a tradition that I need to be sick while talking about Star Wars. But this is like the third year it's happened, and it's not even May this time. Whoa, it's the Knights of Ren. Ghouls. The Instagram trailer was actually the first glimpse of Finn in the snow holding the lightsaber. I haven't even begun to talk about the actual film, but god damn, the way the saber lights his face. I keep forgetting that this video is supposed to be me talking about a movie that I genuinely love and not another year of marketing leading up to the release of a film. If it was, I'd be playing with the new Black Series Stormtrooper toy. I'd be playing Disney Infinity 3.0. I'd be watching Star Wars Rebels Season 1. Because this time around wasn't marked with as many supplemental material, but trust me, the marketing was out in full force.
The odds of survival are 608 to 1.
No choice, 3PO. My sister's in trouble. Lisa!
What took you so long?
Yoda, the Force is strong with you.
Why doesn't the princess just let the boys rescue her?
Because she's a modern and empowered woman unfettered by the antiquated gender roles of a bygone era.
The best place in the galaxy for everything Star Wars. Walmart.
You got it?
What are you doing, buddy?
It's my Ewok Happy Dance.
Figures, vehicles, and playsets, each sold separately. Remember, if it doesn't say Star Wars Micro Machines, it's not the real thing.
Is that normally an issue? Is there a seedy underbelly of counterfeit micro machines? This ad features Chewbacca and BB-8 working together. I haven't seen the movie in a while. Did they even talk to each other in the film? Remember this screaming Chewbacca mask? Well, do you remember when this mom posted her wearing it to Facebook and that somehow resulted in her appearing on television? I know everyone's nostalgic for the Vine era, but maybe everything wasn't all sunshine and rainbows.
From Riverside, California, please welcome Daniel and Josh. Damn, Daniel.
And even expensive Lego sets, somehow even more expensive than the Phantom Menace ones. Luckily for me, and my wallet by extension, this isn't that type of video. Let's give it another 15 years. November 2015 would also mark the release date of EA's new Battlefront game. Two controversial reviews. I didn't play it at the time because I still didn't care much for shooters, and even now, my fellow soldiers would tell you I'm a terrible shot. But that didn't stop one of my relatives buying me the game for the Xbox One for Christmas one year. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Have I ever actually opened this? Redeem your code. Use the below code to unlock 5 exciting in-game items. The Battle of Jakku downloadable content. Oh. Okay, we did get a little bit of sequels, I guess. I really wanted to talk about the Kylo Ren undercover boss sketch from SNL, but that technically released a month after the film, despite it being a widely praised piece of extra Star Wars material from the era. So I guess this other SNL skit will have to suffice.
I love Minions, the little yellow guy. They are so funny you can't understand nothing they say.
Imagine actually seeing Emma Stone as Rey. I know at the time she was the easy A Spider-Man Emma Stone. She hasn't quite broken into the enjoys doing odd shit Emma yet. Following in the same path as Daniel Radcliffe and Robert Pattinson, doing one major franchise and then coasting on that fame to make all the weird shit your heart desires. Eventually, an actual poster started showing up in theaters for promotion, and it uses real poses of the actors instead of the iconic Drew Struzan art. Drew painted so many iconic posters in his lifetime before his passing only 2 months ago. From Back to the Future to Indiana Jones to some wizard shit to Hook, and yes, Star Wars. So the new poster is sort of missing the magic, but it's way better than this one. Please save us, Princess Daisy Ridley.
As we grow closer and closer to December 18th, and we learn little bits and bobs about the plot and the characters, the internet at large tried to piece together the story with what little bits we had.
I'm gonna say there's a cult of Darth Vader, people that worship him. I think that actually the lightsaber, the blue lightsaber, that's Luke's old lightsaber slash Anakin's old lightsaber. That's going to be the MacGuffin. He's going to want that for his Darth Vader collection.
Right off the bat, he's the son of Han Solo and Princess Leia.
Yeah, I think there's a deliberate attempt to make the Jedi pass into myth. My prediction is that Luke will have deemed the Jedi and the Sith just too damn dangerous, more trouble than they're worth. And I think he hasn't tried to resurrect the Jedi Order. I think he's tried to suppress it. He knows he's the last Jedi. He's going to go into hiding.
Finn escapes by jumping in a TIE fighter, shooting the place up, escaping. The Empire bombs his TIE fighter, blows it up, and he spins out and crash lands into the desert.
Which is where Rey, while she is scavenging, meets up with him.
They meet up. Han has told her the truth, that their son is Kylo Ren, and he's fucking everything up and trying to bring the dark side back.
Ooh, that's good.
And she's pretty sad about that.
Holy shit, did they write the script? That doesn't even begin to cover the theory channels.
Star Wars. I can't think of a single other film franchise that has had the impact that Star Wars has had on popular culture. Then there were the prequels that took that legacy and flushed it down the toilet faster than you could say Jar Jar Binks.
Okay, well, which is it, Matt Pat? Because you just said the opposite. Your story's catching up with you, theory boy. There were 3 really popular theories batting around this time, and really only one of them was about The Force Awakens. Maybe like 1.5. The first of which is that the prequel films are secretly brilliant because they followed a ring-structured story. The problem with the prequels was never the exact point A to point B plot. It makes sense that Anakin would turn to the dark side after being seduced by Palpatine. That's not the issue. It's just how that story is portrayed. Everyone loves the Clone Wars cartoon because it portrays Anakin as this lovable guy ahead of his tragic downfall to the dark side, unlike this featureless psycho. This was also around the same time that the Darth Jar Jar theory was making the rounds, in which it implies that Jar Jar was actually a powerful Sith Lord manipulating the events of the prequel films, or at least the ones he was in. This got so popular that it wasn't canonized, but featured in the LEGO Star Wars special exclusive to Disney+. As a fan of LEGO Star Wars and a kid whose entry into the universe was Robot Chicken, Family Guy, and internet parodies, I like these. They're really fun. Also, Michael Cusack is one of them, and I know he's been in several shows by now, but I can't not hear his most iconic characters.
Actually, I reckon you gave me the capacity for speech.
Servo, you can talk?
You upgraded my linguistic abilities. Yay!
The theories about the new movie often wrapped around Supreme Leader Snoke, because he's the big bad we know the least about. Could he secretly be Darth Plagueis, a character we heard about in the prequel trilogy?
Once the movie came out and people saw his face, they even believed that he could be a scarred Mace Windu who actually survived his encounter with Anakin and Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith.
Do I even need to say it this time? He was supposed to survive the fall! At least for a couple minutes. I guess Force lightning turns you white, removes all your melanin, which aids my theory that Joseph Biden is some kind of Palpatine-esque Sith figure. Not to seem tone deaf, but I do kind of miss him sometimes.
The entire campaign from 2013 to 2015 was organized by Disney to a T.
Because this movie couldn't just be one that was big with the hardcore fans. Sure, they went to Comic-Con and Disney events, but this needed to be the hottest family film of the holiday season.
That's why we see so many ads with parents showing their children Star Wars and little girls taking up the mantle for the first time.
I don't need to tell you that Disney owns almost everything, but the movie was on constant marketing and news watch on ABC, which is a subsidiary of Disney. It's the reason there was a clip exclusively revealed on Jimmy Kimmel Live. It's the same reason everyone got gaslit into thinking that The Santa Claus is a Christmas classic.
Disney has invested in, and by invested, I mean bought out several creative ventures. We know this, they buy out properties all the time. But I feel like more often than not, we hear about the successful ones.
And in 2015, I guess it wasn't enough to cover all of TV, all the conventions, releasing a cartoon. In 2015, the fastest rising entertainment avenue was YouTube.com. In 2009, popular YouTubers Lisa Nova, Philip DeFranco, Kasim G, Shay Carl, and more people I don't know the name of, came together to unite under one title, known at the time as. Slowly over time, the station grew more and more as it absorbed the most popular channels at the time. If this random Reddit comment is to be trusted, then apparently Shane Dawson was a member for a short amount of time before leaving because he butted heads creatively with Shay Carl. Yeah, the creator of the Shaytards thought Shane was too inappropriate and edgy, which is, historically, fair enough. As the station spun off into gaming landscapes under the name The Game Station, the entire multi-channel network would be bought by Disney, meaning that, and I'm not a lawyer, but Disney technically owned pretty much every popular channel in the 2010s. I wonder why the Force Awakens trailer was shown off so many times on the React channel, I wonder.
Clearly, there's nobody near me! I'm owning this battle! In fact, I own this whole series!
And the Game Station was rebranded as Polaris, which wasn't just a company peering over every gamer on the net. The channel itself housed original gaming content made up of all the most popular gamers. Not just on their channel, but Polaris also funded many projects across many of their employees' channels. So imagine you are Disney in 2015. You have nearly every YouTube channel, gaming or otherwise, under your umbrella, and you have the opportunity to create a show that will drive millions to the theater on opening night. Who do you pick from this lineup? And I'm going to give you a moment to think on it, because the answer needs to be perfect.
You could have called this game Bird vs. Camel, and no one would have argued with you. Don't believe me? Look, you'd have bought this, wouldn't you?
JonTron Starcade was a Disney-sponsored and developed Star Wars video game review series, and due to its early ties to Polaris, it featured other mainstays like Rubber Ross, his loving wife Holly Conrad, and some guy who plays horror games, I think. Apparently, early on, Disney and Polaris had their hands deep in this project until a little before the halfway point, where production was predominantly taken over by John Jafari, Zachary Hadel, and Chris O'Neill. Also, Mick Lauer is in there to do the C-3PO voice. I thought they got the real C-3PO for a second. This is not a joke. This is technically a Disney product created to make you want to go to the theater and see the new film. Did it accomplish that? Hard to say. But I can tell you this, as a kid who was deeply entrenched into the Polaris culture at the time, who went to MagFest for the first time and met all of them there. This series mattered to me. The finale mattered to me. After 9 episodes of covering games, for the most part, the series is brought to a close as JonTron confronts the Empirical figures before reenacting the end of Return of the Jedi and saving the Darth Vader character. He removes the Dark Lord's helmet as the soft music whispers the motif bum, 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 as it's revealed that the man underneath the helmet was actually former YouTube animator and current YouTube conglomeration Egoraptor. And this meeting between the two is significant, because it's actually a deep cut reference to Egoraptor's short-lived YouTube series Lightsaber Fight Saver, where in 2012 Egoraptor fought against the 2012 Chris O'Neill, known as Oni and G, with lightsabers, the sequel to which contained a Darth Vader of his own and also gave special thanks to Zachary Hadel under the name Psychic Pebbles. Oh, and I guess John and Aaron played games together at some point. But that was a long time ago. And the finale to this Disney-backed series could have been the perfect opportunity for longtime internet friends to put their differences aside and let bygones be bygones and finally come back together to play video games on their channel. Had it not been for...
I want to look and feel the part. I want to go all the way. No, okay, this didn't work. I'm gonna take this off now.
I really didn't think we were gonna top that last Nazi moment. But lo and behold, how come nobody ever uses this clip? The dude became a legit Nazi. You couldn't edit an image more pertinent than that.
Which brings us to the end of the internet. Yeah, after that, there was no more internet. YouTube said they wouldn't allow it anymore, and Polaris folded shortly thereafter.
I don't know where else to put this, so I suppose I'll lump it in with the other internet projects. I want to give a quick shout out to Auralnauts specifically. They announced they'd be shutting down production in this year, 2025. And it's a shame because they were such a source of mid-2010s entertainment for Kid Ultra. I don't know which I would recommend to start. I first found them after I was recommended the Star Wars Minus Williams video where they removed the score and Chewbacca is just a screaming guy. They've edited tons of movies from Batman to Transformers. I still think about Oreobot. No! I wish I could just play the entirety of the Hobbit video where they sing Michael Jackson's Beat It in the style of Misty Mountains Cold. But obviously, the videos I showed everyone I could were their dub edits of Star Wars. These videos are sort of like an abridged series, but edited in After Effects. I still, to this day, quote, "You promised me flesh! I hate the friend zone!"
Hey, you wanna buy some death sticks?
You don't want to sell me death sticks.
I don't wanna sell you death sticks.
You want to go home and kill yourself.
I wanna go home and kill myself.
Anyway, go binge all of Auralnaut's videos after this. Apparently, there won't be any more. So after the trailers and teasers and interviews and late night shows and reactions and panels and pop-ups and video games and cartoons and TV spots and Instagram posts and leaks and YouTube videos and toys, my birthday, 2016. I was gifted this remote control RC BB-8 toy that still makes noise, but I actually don't know where the remote is. I think it might still work. I was turning 15, mind you. I asked for this. I took it to school the next day. Not that it really matters, but I knew people who lost their virginity when they were 15. Listen, if you're a grifter and you're already mad about this video because I shat on the prequels and said nice things about Disney, you were already gonna frame me as a consumer. I might as well just say I like a toy. BB-8, you look different. What happened to you? The first movie I ever saw in theaters was either Disney Pixar's Cars or Disney's The Shaggy Dog 2006. Or I saw a completely different movie, but I have that memory of thinking the Shaggy Dog was gonna bite me and turn me into a dog while I was in that dark movie theater because I saw the Shaggy Dog at an earlier moment in my life. I mean, sure, the Clone Wars had come out when I was seeing movies. 2008 was a big year. WALL-E, Kung Fu Panda, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the Clone Wars movie, Space Chimps, I guess. I don't think I've seen that movie, though. But not only was that a drive-in theater where I was already kind of half paying attention as I was messing around with my friends, but the movie was also boring. I always thought, maybe from an egotistical standpoint, that I was above nostalgia. Like so many in my age bracket, I grew up watching the Star Wars prequels in my very formative years. But I was special or more intelligent or whatever, that I broke through the spell that everyone else was hexed by these movies. Because I always assumed everyone I was arguing with was my exact age and had my exact experience. But that's not really how it works. That's the thing about growing up, is it takes about 18 years to do it from a legal standpoint. So if you were born in the 90s, you still probably hold a lot of reverence for like SpongeBob, even though that ostensibly came out in the 2000s. Maybe I would have held these films in higher regard if I did see them in theaters. I mean, if my first film was either Cars or The Shaggy Dog, that means my first theater experience was 2006. That means I had just missed the boat on seeing the entire experience. I thought all these fans were arguing in bad faith, all because it's a movie they liked as a kid, that they had rose-tinted glasses, they were blinded by nostalgia. All because it meant a lot to them as kids. Come to find out that maybe the prequel movies just didn't mean that much to me when I was a kid. I mean, sure, I watched them, but I don't think I was really cognizant enough to understand what I was watching or form memories based around it. All of my prequel Star Wars memories, they're all in Lego form. I did not have the adolescent experience of seeing a new Star Wars film in theaters until 2015. So maybe that's it. Maybe what I feel about Star Wars The Force Awakens is what so many feel about those George Lucas-led prequel films. Maybe now I get it, a little bit. But surely, The Force Awakens is still better than those movies, right? And I was so locked in to seeing a new Star Wars film in theaters for the first time in my life, for locking into this new trilogy that would carry throughout my entire teenage years, that from the winter of 2015, 2016, I saw Star Wars The Force Awakens in theaters 5 times. But I was 14. I was hardly alone in my theater viewing experience.
I'm your grandfather.
Right.
And have been your grandfather for many years.
But we don't call you that.
You call us Papa. And that is a term of endearment that you all have given me.
Gifted, in a way.
Gigi for your grandmom.
Right.
You know, so that's
sort of like a royal title.
I know, Sir Papa.
Yeah.
Be 25 years old, and I've known him actually since he was born. And he came into this life at just the right time and the right place for me. I love my grandson with all my heart. And him and I, we were sort of like joined at the hip. We did everything together. We went to movies. I often say we went to his favorite restaurant, which was McDonald's.
It became a tradition to get that before movies.
Yeah, it did. It did. And you know, we just did a lot of stuff together. It became evident that you were a movie buff.
Right.
And,
this is my job now.
Right, which is your job. But you grew into it early. I think you were always able to talk about a movie and delve into it even when you were young.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which you still are young. But
I'm pushing 30 now.
Believe me, that's not old.
Yeah.
You're old when you're old when you've hit 80 and beat the hell out of it. You know?
So did you ever see? Because the original Star Wars films, the first one came out in 1977.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see these films in theaters?
We did.
Not me.
I mean, I seen them.
They're spiritually.
Yeah, but yeah, they were. I always loved those kind of movies. I love the action movies. You know, the Star Wars, the Indiana Jones, the all of these that I guess a lot of people don't like. I just loved them. And as Andrew got older and we stopped going to seeing the animated movies, then we started graduating to other movies. Mm-hmm. This is a smart kid, not because he's my grandson, but it's true. He's a very, very intelligent boy.
I was failing crazy in school. I was flunking out the entire time.
I'm forgetting some of the ones we saw, but there were so many.
That we watched together, or like in the 70s, 80s?
We watched together.
I think, to my memory, at least the farthest back I can remember, first going to the movie theater in like 2005, 2006 maybe.
Okay.
Because I do remember us seeing Cars, the Disney Pixar movie Cars.
Yeah.
And I remember because we went to McDonald's before and they had like Cars toys in there.
Right, exactly.
And I think that was the time with the geese.
Medium-sized lake over there. And there were ducks and there were geese. And, Andrew, I got a loaf of bread and Andrew was throwing bread out there.
I think we're throwing French fries because it just came from McDonald's.
You had French fries too, but there was bread.
Mm-hmm.
And the ducks and the geese, all of a sudden, they started coming out of the water, and he started walking towards them. Well, at that time, Andrew was small.
It was about geese height.
And these geese,
about goose height,
these geese were the same height as he. And all of a sudden, he started coming. He turned around to me, and he said, "Pop!" And he started run over, and he jumped up. And these geese and ducks were all around us.
Now, have you ever seen what the inside of a goose's mouth looks like? Imagine that, like about your height, your size.
I mean, to him, it seemed like he was going to be swallowed by a whale or something, you know.
Well, we saw, like you said, animated films when I was younger, and then in like the 2010s, I think.
Yeah.
So when we would go, it was like post divorce. I think we would see like. I don't know how regularly, but a lot of the action movies that were just the movies that were coming out in theaters, I would say from like 2012 to like 2016, maybe.
Well, probably a little later than that, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
No, we were,
just all throughout like early tweens, teenagers.
You would give me a call, or I would give you a call, and we'd go do that. It was just a matter of it didn't matter what I seen. Mm-hmm. I was just with my grandson.
That's how I just like going to the movies.
Yeah.
The crux of what I'm getting at in this is that it was my first Star Wars experience in theaters, and you got to see the originals in the 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
And then the prequel films came out a little bit before my time. The last one was 2005, so obviously I don't think I was seeing movies by that point.
No.
I imagine the first movie I saw in theaters was in 2006 when I was 5.
Yeah.
That this film, The Force Awakens, when it was coming out in 2015, not only was I like pretty internet and movie savvy at the time, we were seeing movies all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of just bad action movies, like there was like a G.I. Joe movie I remember falling asleep during. We saw Mad Max Fury Road though. Then in 2015, I was so excited about seeing The Force Awakens. I saw it like 5 separate times throughout the winter. We did go to see it, I think the first time maybe.
Yeah, we did. And then you went back and seen it again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of those things where right now I can go to Disney on TV and watch these shows again. And I do. I watch them again and again because it brings back memories for me also.
Yeah.
You know,
Can I say something?
Sure. Do you want to come over here?
Oh.
But you gotta go down.
Yeah, hi.
I always say in life, it's not where you are, it's who you're with. And what Pop just said proves that. Although he loved going to the movies, it's the fact that he was with Andrew at the movies.
Which helped because we were seeing probably mostly bad movies. The Marvel stuff was...
Did you like the Guardians?
I loved Guardians of the Galaxy.
I did
remember.
too.
I think my first like MCU like Marvel film was Iron Man 3, and I think from that point we just kept seeing them every time.
Oh yeah. As soon as they come out.
Yeah.
As soon as you would call me and you would say they're going to start showing up here on a certain day, and we most times we made it on the first day or at least the second or third day. But we always had a good time.
Like going to opening weekends, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that was I think that's the movie theater that I would eventually work at. That same one.
It is
in that area, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
So that kind of transitioned into me when I was working there. I would see whatever they had.
I forget how old you were at the time, but it was my birthday, and we lived here. It was my birthday, and you came in, and you were just so excited that you wanted to show me my birthday present from you, and it was one of your prized possessions. It was the Millennium Falcon, which I've got on display in my.
You can get shots of it in the glass case, but yeah, this is
Yeah, she wants to get a shot of it in the glass case too, baby. And there you go. There's the Millennium Falcon, the famous Falcon, and I know he meant it from his heart because this is one of his valued possessions. And Andrew had a good bit of it, but some were nicer than others. Some of his stuff, but this was something. And
yeah, it's relatively intact.
It is. It's perfect.
You took really good care of yourself.
See them in there, yeah.
Yeah, look at that. I think kids get into it, but because I had asked you, having seen them before, and then when this come out, The Force Awakens, the first person I thought of was my movie pal, and then we went and seen that. This started out, in the first Star Wars, and it just grew from there, and it became really, I guess you could say, it probably bordered on being a cult classic too.
Yeah, well, it was a huge blockbuster. I think it was one of the first summer blockbusters.
My God, the money that pulled in after a certain amount of time. My God, serious. And people, I think, were looking for a thing like that. What's his name?
George Lucas,
Steven Spielberg, James Cameron. These guys are they're geniuses in what they do, and it shows in their film. It shows that what the human mind is capable of, and I have always been just fascinated by that. So I guess I'm an 84-year-old kid, but I just still love them, and I still like to get together with my boy and go see a movie too.
We got to see the IMAX re-release for the 50th anniversary in 2027.
We will do that. I hope to be around here.
You got to at least make it to the IMAX.
I have no plans on going anywhere right now. So.
After we see the IMAX movie, you could do whatever you want.
This is
on Disney Plus right now.
This is Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Luke Skywalker has vanished. In his absence, the sinister First Order has risen from the ashes of the Empire and will not rest until Skywalker, the last Jedi, has been destroyed. With the support of the Republic, General Leia Organa leads a brave resistance. She is desperate to find her brother Luke and gain his help in restoring peace and justice to the galaxy. Leia has sent her most daring pilot on a secret mission to Jakku, where an old ally has discovered a clue to Luke's whereabouts.
I think that's the end of it.
That's the end of it?
All right, well, that's all we need.
Was that
He does.
Yeah.
He's been told he ought to be on the radio.
Before we start this film, I think we should set a few ground rules. The original draft of this script had me going through the movie as if you or I have never seen it. Stuff like, who's this rogue stormtrooper? I wonder what Kylo Ren looks like under his mask. I wonder what Kylo Ren looks like under his pants. But I don't think that does either of us any favors, nor does it properly facilitate discussion. So I'm just gonna move forward and assume you have seen the film. Even if not, maybe if you saw it all the way back in 2015, maybe if you just have a vague understanding of what happens in it, maybe everything you know about this movie is from people on YouTube calling it woke. I'm sorry, it's just, it would be ridiculous to pretend like all of us don't know who Lor San Tekka is.
I mean, I joke, but this guy is arguably the most important figure in the sequel trilogy, who sets the story in motion, and we know very little about him. See, because this movie's favorite thing to do is to change perspective, lure you into a false sense of security, and then immediately cut and run. We're following Lor San Tekka until we're not. Then we're following Poe Dameron until we're not. Then we're following Finn, and then Rey. You get my point. I mean, if we want to go farther back, BB-8 is the first face we see in the film, and then we follow him to this village. I like the little detail that the storefront of the starship is shaped like Kylo Ren's lightsaber, hilt and all. I choose to believe he demanded that be included. I think the most valid complaint about this film is how religiously it follows and copies the original Star Wars film. I won't call it derivative because at the end of the day, a story is held up by its characters, and the characters here are what make it different, but I won't shy away from these concerns because very literally, a rebel leader is ambushed by a bigger ship, so they send away a droid with an important piece of information the bad guys are searching for. Also, I like Jakku. I know that planets are big and the real world repeats often, but there is no reason most of this movie needs to take place on a completely new desert planet. Don't get me wrong, I hate how often we go back to Tatooine in this franchise, but if we're doing Tatooine anyway, why hide it? It's like Windy Hill Zone compared to Green Hill Zone. It's technically different because of the name. However, I do think that this scene, this assault on Jakku, ups the ante and sets itself apart. For one, the brutality of it all. And while the community members are arming and defending themselves, there's still a village being gunned down and very literally burned down by a major military force. The rebel ship in the original was a military target full of soldiers. This is someone's home. I think what simultaneously works about this movie, but cost us all brain cells later down the line, is how many questions it raises. Because so much of the assault on Jakku can be left up to interpretation. What is Poe's relationship with Lor San Tekka? He seems to talk to him as some kind of mentor figure. We know that Lor knew Leia when she was a princess, and knows about Kylo Ren's heritage. Poe didn't grow up on Jakku, nor was he here for anything other than a mission, but he still witnessed every single man, woman, child, and sharkhead guy get brutally gunned down in front of his own eyes. Even the way that Kylo Ren needlessly cuts down Lor San Tekka is brutal. Going back to watch this film, I can't help but to hear that ba 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 of the Kylo Ren theme when he appears, and instantly think, dude, this guy is so cool. But separating myself from my memories, they do such a good job at making this guy, and the First Order by extension, a horrifying threat. Also, Captain Phasma is there. Do they exchange any more lines after this? Do they have a good relationship? Are they friends, or are they more like co-workers? Because he doesn't seem very affected when she eventually bites it. Kylo Ren is a near carbon copy of Darth Vader in this scene. But not only do I think that works with what they're doing with his character in this film, you know, a fanboy and all, but also I think the fun of these modern sequels is conveying a near mirror image of an iconic character using modern film techniques. The fact that his voice isn't booming between breaths, but instead crackling as it roars from his helmet, it fits his erratic character. Darth Vader was slow, cold, and calculated, mostly because he sort of had to be due to the weight of the suit and the real man performing inside it.
He's white.
But I think it fits that not only is his mask apparatus, but also his lightsaber sporadically crackling. Bro sounds like an Xbox Live microphone. Also, him stopping the laser beam right in its place is cool and all, but he like never does this again. Not once. Surely this could have been useful when laser swords were being swung at his head, or when he was being shot at. I guess it's just there so that JJ can do his iconic bright lens flare as Poe Dameron is dragged past, which makes it even more notable when Poe Dameron is put face to face with this monster that he instantly cracks a joke. I know that people feel very strongly about the bits he does in the second film, and about jokes in Star Wars as a whole. First of all, Star Wars has always been funny. Even the prequels tried their best with fart and poop jokes. I wasn't gonna bring it up because you're extending me an olive branch by hearing me out as I talk about a movie I love dearly. So I didn't want to shit on the prequels as much as I talk about this film. But it is so fucking funny that the first lines spoken in this film are, "This will begin to make things right." Like, it almost acts as an apology. This will be the movie that makes good by the Star Wars fans. How soon we all forget the dark era. I digress. Not only does this tell us everything we need to know about Poe Dameron as a character, but also he is instantly punished for his ego. I mean, it's likely Kylo was gonna order the death of the village anyway, but Poe doesn't know that. He just rage baited the Xbox Live kid into killing everyone in this village, which again, we don't know how long he's been here. What if Lor San Tekka was like his dad? What if Dasha Prementi was his wife? Okay, so I also may have played the Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens game to decide how I divvy up the scenes while working on this project, and you unlock her after the assault on Jakku level, and I really just wanted to name drop. Oh, you think I just knew Lor San Tekka right off the dome? Even before the opening line, I skipped over it because of the fabulous title crawl we covered, but being in a physical movie theater when the title appears and just blasts you back in your seat.
You fucking moron.
I mentioned this when I was talking about the trailer, but the stormtroopers being lit only by the swinging light inside their space storage container as they immediately drop into combat sort of have to recognize both sides to this horror. Which brings us to FN2187. So we learn later that this stormtrooper actually had a sanitation job on Starkiller Base prior to this, and I have to assume this means this is his first time in active combat. Again, we have to make several assumptions about this scene. That doesn't make it bad retroactively, it just makes it work better among your first watch. Because we know where this guy ends up, not only by the end of this movie, but the end of this trilogy. So I went back into this movie and incorrectly assumed that he was shaken by the horrors of war and realized then and there that what they were doing was wrong. But That's not really what happens in this scene. Like, by the time they're burning women and children, he's already off puking in his helmet. I don't think this moment is FN 2187 realizing the error of his ways and breaking out of all the First Order propaganda. I think it's he realizes he's not built for this. Yet again, a lot is implied in this scene. A fellow stormtrooper dies in front of him and smears blood all over his helmet. Quick side tangent. Earlier I said that this scene benefits from the time it was made, the time that had passed since the original and the prequels. Prior to this movie, the only Star Wars film that was anything above PG was Revenge of the Sith, and that one had child murder, a man burning alive, and also sexy Anakin dead wife dream. So this movie benefits from its era because basically every movie was PG-13. If you're not, you're either gory and sexy or you're doo-doo diaper baby slop for babies.
You know, it's hard for people to realize, and I'm not supposed to say this, and I wasn't supposed to say it then, but, you know, it's a film for 12-year-olds.
If Star Wars was made today, I guarantee you every single film would be PG-13 for the marketing alone. I bring it up because we very seldom ever see blood in Star Wars. But this being like one of the 2 moments makes it hit even harder. I mean, I guess 3 if we're counting 2 moments from this movie. The first drop of blood is to show the power of both Obi-Wan and his laser weapon we have not seen in action. And this moment is the inverse, to have the most expressive moment in the series without ever seeing the character's face. Look at this. We know exactly what he's feeling. Granted, again, a lot is up to interpretation. We don't know if this reaction is due to FN holding one of his fellow soldiers in his arms as he slowly dies, potentially even his friend, or maybe this is him even learning that they can die for the first time. Because I'm assuming if he was stolen as a child and he grew up within the First Order, surrounded by propaganda since day one, he must have thought the First Order was indestructible. I'm sure he didn't even know their armor could be pierced. FN's arc in this movie is finding something worth fighting for, to stop running and finally stand up for something he believes in. But at this point in the movie, he's just a coward. They try and do this plot line in The Rise of Skywalker where he attempts to free some stormtroopers because everyone online was constantly asking why he never went back and liberated his fellow stormtroopers. And the simple answer is because that's not really what he stands for. Sure, he grew up in an oppressive system and he wants to take down the First Order, but that's mainly to protect his friends. Because let me tell you, later in this movie, he kills stormtroopers like it's going out of style. One of which presumably knew him pretty well, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Or maybe, just maybe, this moment when the blood is smeared across his helmet, he feels an awakening. I mean, Kylo Ren surely seems to sense something in this kid as he saunters back onto his ship and lets go of the floating laser like a fart you keep in your back pocket before your partner leaves the room. The scene ends as BB-8 rolls past an alien puppet creature over the dirt. They must love the shot because they do it multiple times in this film. I can't even blame them because I also love this shot. That's not even mentioning the moment Poe uses the gun on his blue X-Wing to blow the stormtroopers back, where they used real stuntmen and blew them up for real. Man, movies need to explode stunt actors again. I want to cover the movie scene by scene since I think it's probably the most comprehensive way to go about this, but the next 10 minutes jump around a lot. Like, I don't have much to say about this short moment between FN 2187 and Captain Phasma, except asking how long she's been there. Did she follow him in here or did we just not see her? Also, his suit is so filthy. How did you even get it this bad? Did he roll around in the sand after the camera's cut? I will say though, I love that this short scene is used, FN removing his helmet to show us his humanity. And then we transition into our introduction to Rey, who we are also introduced to wearing a mask. This is like the 3rd character we've met for the first time wearing some kind of face covering. Everyone talks about the J.J. Abrams mystery box, but no one ever talks about the J.J. Abrams mystery helmet. I'm sure that the outfit serves a practical purpose. Perhaps this is my "the curtains were blue" situation. But I don't know. So much of our early introduction to Rey, without any lines spoken, show that she, like Kylo Ren, is a huge fan of the Rebel Empire Wars, that era. I think this is a smart way to insert all these characters into an already in-motion narrative. This movie is, for better or for worse, a love letter to the original Star Wars trilogy. Swaths of fans rush to the theater to see the newest installment. And the easiest way to get those fans on these new characters' side is to make the characters fans as well. Kylo Ren is obsessed with the Empire. Rey is impressed with the story of Luke Skywalker. That's a lot of notches. After like the 5th or 6th year, I just give up and draw graffiti instead. Hey, goddamn, I know this movie has John Williams standouts like Kylo Ren and Supreme Leader Snoke's themes, but I feel like Rey's theme doesn't get enough love. It's almost inquisitive, like the song is unsure about Rey and her place in the universe. If you watch the Sideways video, you'd realize it's because they actually were unsure of her place in the universe, but I don't think it negates how it makes me feel. After seeing the movie for the first time, I would listen to this track, just the instrumental, on loop whenever I was in the car. Going back to this film, I realized Rey is another character I completely misunderstood. I let a decade of online discourse and a lackluster sequel paint her character motivation. Just like Finn, who I assumed was a hero who wanted to liberate stormtroopers, I assumed Rey's story was a carbon copy of Luke's. But aside from the sand planet and maybe her path, they couldn't be more different. Because I think the argument that enrages me the most when it comes to this movie in particular is the insinuation that Rey could not have pulled off any of the feats she does in this movie. That she is somehow an overpowered Mary Sue because she learns combat faster than Luke Skywalker. First of all, that's not what a Mary Sue is. But even if it was, then almost every fucking character could be classified under that umbrella. Secondly, of course she'd be stronger than Luke from the jump. Luke grew up on a farm that is almost entirely held up by droids. His family has been utilizing slave labor since he's a swaddled little diaper baby boy. He has never worked a day in his life. Look at him! Look at how he's dressed! He wants nothing more than to leave his boring farm life. Not because it's hard or soul-crushing, but because it's boring. He has aspirations of being a part of something greater. Rey is homeless. Every day scaling dangerous abandoned machinery for scraps that she can sell to Unkar Plutt, played by Simon Pegg, by the way, and then get one piece of Spy Kids growing bread powder, and then sleep through the night in a desert where everything and everyone wants her dead. She's probably been using this staff to defend herself since she could speak. Of course she's going to be naturally more gifted. Look at the way these large vistas just dwarf her to show the discrepancy, how vast the galaxy is and her little part in it. Insignificance. I always look at the downed starship, so much so that I never even noticed the crashed X-Wing. But don't get me started on this vulture puppet thing. Batting away at the skull. Oh, trust me, I've seen the vulture puppet. Like, the only constant in her life is this dude named Tito, who's more like her boss. And then he shows up to her pathetic little hut and traps a soccer ball in one of those soccer ball nets made for soccer balls. But this rant also granted me the realization about her character. Because she isn't just a more skilled and more homeless Luke Skywalker. Sure, she's a fan of the guy and the rebellion, but she's not very eager to leave her life and join the fight. I mean, that village outpost from the opening is on the same planet. BB-8 rolled all the way here, so it can't be that far. Quick side note again, I know I stopped myself from gushing about the vulture puppet. I didn't really stop myself, but I love the fact that BB-8 leaves a solid track. Like a trail behind him as he rolls through the desert. That's how you know he's real. If he was some CG tennis ball, the moment Rey rejects even more Spy Kids growing bread powder to protect BB-8 wouldn't be nearly as impactful, because Rey is hardened by her lot in life, but she still cares. Also, you know, you could probably just make way more bread dust in the long run with a free droid. Money can be exchanged for goods and services. I know the sunset only really exists in the scene so we can get the iconic JJ lens flare, but maybe it's iconic for a reason. My point being, Rey watches a ship blasting off from this dingy sand planet, and I remembered this scene as being her Luke moment. Like, she looks to the stars and dreams for something greater. But I don't think that's what this is at all. The moment she starts talking to BB-8, she talks about her parent and how they're coming back someday. Then the second she leaves the planet, she's eager to go back. This isn't her dreaming of leaving. This is her dreaming of her parents' return. Which also contextualizes the scene where she looks somberly at this old woman working herself to the bone under this oppressive system. When I remember back to this, it was a little bit of a Finn stormtrooper liberator situation. Like, if your motivation is tied to helping people, then how come you never go back to save them? This old lady's probably dead. But I think this is actually just a horrifying glimpse into what very well could be Rey's future. Ew! She's old! I don't want to look like that. What I'm getting at is that all of our new main characters are a little selfish. But I think it works because BB-8 is so cute and selfless. He truly drives the story, almost literally. We cut back to an intimate scene of Kylo Ren interrogating Poe Dameron, which is crazy to consider how much time they're on screen together. We're like 1/8 of the way through the film, and no two characters have interacted more than these two, which is even more crazy because I'm pretty sure they just don't interact again after this moment. Like, sure, it's impactful learning that Poe is physically strong, but mentally weak. He has no force in him, so Kylo has no interest. But this dude burned down a village he may or may not have held dear. He doesn't want to take a swing at him across 3 movies? Well, he's soon broken out by FN 2187, now in a spotless stormtrooper outfit. Do you think he cleaned it? Or do you think they made him change into a new one? Again, FN has no dreams of being a resistance hero. He's breaking Poe out because he knows he's the galaxy's best pilot currently, which results in the funny moment where he says, "It's the right thing to do," before Poe Dameron immediately clocks him, "You need a pilot." Everyone has their expertise. When you're rounding a cast, it's an easy writing trick to make one person good at one thing. Obviously, Poe can fly circles around any pilot, and FN, despite not having shot anyone or anything in the assault on Jakku, hits all his targets perfectly. This is what I mean, man. If he cared about liberating stormtroopers, he would not be exploding his former comrades so hard that they Wilhelm scream. He was deployed alongside these guys like a couple hours earlier, and now he's shooting them with a TIE fighter on purpose. He was likely trained with a blaster since he was small. There's a bit right after the escape where General Hux and Kylo Ren are discussing what has just transpired, and Kylo Ren instantly knows that it's FN 2187 that helped the prisoner escape. He sensed something within him on Jakku, and Kylo Ren implies that this insubordination wouldn't have happened if their Neo-Empire used clone troopers, which Hux takes offense to. I think that understanding the psychology of the First Order is really understanding these two. Hux and Kylo don't hate each other as much as they talk like they're jealous brothers fighting for their father's approval, which is ironic in Kylo Ren's case. Their proverbial father being the supreme leader we do not see yet. All of that to say, General Hux would not fucking betray the First Order to get one up on Kylo. That is so stupid. Anyway, the clone trooper thing is both a jab at the prequel films, retroactively making every stormtrooper in the original trilogy a clone without any personality that are also clones of Jango Fett, and also lets us in on details about the First Order sparingly. FN 2187 was likely taken as a child and groomed into this fascist regime. All right, enough saying the entire codename. In this thrilling sequence, Poe Dameron and FN immediately hit it off. When the rebel pilot hears the rogue stormtrooper's name, he reacts, "Nah, I'm gonna call you Finn." And for the first time, Finn is grateful. He's happy to be with someone. It is in this moment that Finn, the person, Finn the human, is born. I will say, I love this scene, but I couldn't stop thinking about that other scene from Solo, where Han gets his last name because some Empire dude just makes it up. If Finn already had an established character, and The Force Awakens was like a prequel about his origin, this scene would get so many eye rolls. But The Force Awakens isn't a prequel, and I know that because Poe and Finn have instantly more chemistry and camaraderie in 5 minutes than Anakin and Obi-Wan do in 3 films. I know I said I wasn't gonna shit on the prequels as much, but I think it's important to understanding that bit at the end where Obi-Wan screams, "You are my brother, Anakin! I loved you!" I really wish we could have seen any of that. It's the reason every time you see an emotional edit on TikTok leading up to the moment of the betrayal, they only ever use clips from the Clone Wars because it's the only show where it actually seems like they were good friends.
And he was a good friend. Which reminds me.
When will the sequel trilogy get its own Clone Wars? Oh, no, sorry, we have to see Sabine get a lightsaber. The year is 2025. What I'm getting at is that I wanted to see more of Finn and Poe, and I imagine the director did too, which results in this truly baffling decision. After a cut, we see the wreckage of the TIE fighter the duo escaped in, and it is completely total. Poe is nowhere to be found, but then Finn does collect his jacket. The TIE fighter sinks into the sand and results in a huge explosion that I'm convinced was made to flex the IMAX screen release of this film. When are they gonna release this one in theaters again? I'm sure you've seen the movie, or at least know what happens. But what happens is that Poe just returns later on a completely different planet. And I'll admit that that moment is cool, but how did we get here? So as the story goes, the original version of the script, which was written by a team of Lawrence Kasdan, Michael Arndt, and J.J. Abrams, Poe Dameron was supposed to die here and stay dead. We don't know if the death was supposed to be portrayed exactly the same as it is on screen, but we know that was the script. It was meant to be a shock to the audience. The hero we followed from the beginning dies so that our two reluctant heroes can thrive. Until Oscar Isaac, who is predominantly known as important characters in indie films and the person who dies in blockbusters. He campaigned to have a larger role in the movie and eventually convinced the director, J.J. Abrams, which to put it bluntly, is probably one of the most lucrative decisions of his career. Like, imagine you're supposed to die in the new Star Wars movie and you just ask not to be killed, and now you're in 3 big budget movies being paid more and more every time. I'm a huge fan of Oscar Isaac's work, and I'm glad that this decision worked out for him. However, 3 people wrote this movie, one of which has been attached to the project since George Lucas was leading the script, and one of the others has been writing Star Wars films since the 80s. And again, as far as we know, this was a unilateral decision made exclusively by JJ. As far as we know. So whenever this scene comes up, whenever any questions are raised, the answer is always, well, he was supposed to die, but then he did such a good job that we wanted to keep him around. Okay, you're directing the movie. He had to have been around for several shooting days after this. He's in a lot of scenes later. You couldn't have changed this a little bit? Where does he go? My only theory is that this scene was shot so early into production that it simply was too expensive to go back. I mean, the way John Boyega talks about this scene, it almost seems like the moment where he sweatily jumps into frame was shot with the knowledge it would be the first scene in the trailer. It's incredibly likely that this bit was shot for the trailer to begin with. Then they just kind of worked backwards, which is commendable because that's basically how I shoot my videos. And although, again, I do like Oscar Isaac, and I like Poe Dameron, and I don't think his supposed death, the way it appears in the film, is particularly impactful. With the power of hindsight, we know he doesn't really have much to do in the next 2 films, especially not when they're introducing new characters each time. I hate to say it, I feel like all of these movies would have worked better if he just stayed dead, but more on that later. For now, we have the meeting of our primary protagonist as Finn takes Poe's jacket as the last memory of the first person to show him kindness and humanity. After taking a drink at the watering hole, he spots Rey being accosted by Tito. Or Tito's? I still don't know if he's like a guy with a name or a people. He considers rushing in to help her, but stops himself. Even before she shows herself to be capable of combat. She murks these dudes with her staff. And Finn is instantly enamored. Again, Finn has no greater aspiration of being a rebel hero. He's opportunistically aligning himself with the strongest person in the room, and that's Rey. And I feel like the prevailing opinion, at least the loudest opinion online after the dust had settled, was that Rey was simply too strong, thus making her unrealistic. I'm not saying everything was sunshine and rainbows in the past, because, you know, we know what would happen after 2015, but that year really felt like the last year you could have a strong female protagonist and not immediately get a bunch of grifter slop calling it woke. I think a little disillusion comes with the term strong female character, where I believe what people want when they say that is a strong character who is a woman, not a character who is a strong woman. I'm not saying female anymore, trust me, it makes my skin crawl just as much as yours. The idea behind this complaint is that what audiences actually want are well-written and complex women in the art they engage with. But guess what? That's not true either, because they can't even handle the mom in Breaking Bad. I haven't even finished Pluribus when I'm writing this, but I know that shit's gonna happen again. Specifically in Finn and Rey's escape, which follows after a moment between the 3. That's actually really funny. 3 including BB-8. Say what you will about comedy in Star Wars, but I distinctly remember BB-8 getting a huge laugh from the packed theater every time. They love this guy. I saw this movie 5 times in theaters. I know it sounds like I'm arguing with a fake straw man I made up, and it's always a man, but I knew people in real life who would huff and puff and roll their eyes whenever Rey would refuse to take Finn's hand. Where I grew up, it was slim pickings for friends. First of all, Rey does not know this guy. All she knows now is that he took a dead man's jacket. Follow-up question, Finn tells BB-8 that Poe didn't make it, which I guess is literally true, like he's not standing in this scene. But he implies that Poe is dead so matter of fact. How do you know that? You didn't even see his body. Where was I? Oh yeah. Rey doesn't trust anyone at all. She only recently opened her heart up to BB-8. So the 2 times she refuses Finn's hand are not meant to be this epic takedown of her male co-star. It's to build up to the moment where they're being attacked by TIE fighters and she has the opportunity to escape with BB-8, but instead she chooses to help Finn by extending her hand to him. The camera even lingers on it. I've been talking about this movie for a decade now and defending it where I believe defense is due, and I think in the long run, it's made me more defensive. I've become closed off, like our protagonist, one of our protagonists. Why do I even bother arguing with people who hate in bad faith? Because don't get me wrong, there is a lot to dislike about this movie, and I will levy valid criticism where I see fit, but the one I hear the most often, and I've heard every week since December 2015, the dumbest shit I've ever heard, the most annoying, is the take that Rey shouldn't be this skilled and should not be able to do the things she does in this film. And you may think that this movie is actually overcorrecting that interpretation by making her too strong too early, but need I remind you, this is the kind of fan poster everyone was making. With dainty Princess Rey. Of course she'd be able to fly the Millennium Falcon. She would need to have a pretty advanced understanding of how these things work if her life depended on which parts she could find in abandoned ships. Like, I know how to drive a car, but I don't know what a muffler does. Got too heated about Rey again, that I totally skipped over the Falcon reveal. And it did cure my sickness. It's cool that while they're running, you can actually faintly see it as the camera swings. Like I said, a valid criticism you can levy at this film is the level of retreading it concedes. But I don't think that the fan service is as egregious as it will later get in even movies like Rogue One. I think it's because there's a lack of respect in their words. We know sweaty nerds get their undies in a knot when their uber epic childhood heroes aren't treated correctly or do cool backflips and put all their points in a saber throw. Actually, I'm recording this day by day. As I'm recording this, John Cena just tapped out to Gunther and everyone's throwing a fucking fit about it. For that bitch, just have a black screen. I'm not even gonna try and trifle with the WWE anymore, all right? That Stardust clip was enough. But the fact that they initially reject the Falcon because it's garbage and then are forced to fly said garbage as the music swells, I like it. Fuck you. Because I feel like their skill sets are pretty well established. Like, before they board the ship, Finn is immediately looking for blasters. And then when they're on it, he goes for the mounted gun. He is a proficient shot, as much as a stormtrooper can be. Which results in the cute, I could do this speech from both of them. They just both got really, really lucky. That's Star Wars. The sequence is cool and all. Why does the Falcon have a gun on the bottom? It looks like it was built wrong. It's like the pie-throwing robot from Adventure Time where they draw a face on what they think will be the head and then the face just shows up on the torso. You'd think Unkar Plutt would fix it if he cared so much about the scrap pile. Also, outside of flashbacks, this will be the last we see of Unkar Plutt in this film. May he rest. I like the moment where our heroes make a TIE fighter crash into the sand and a gaggle of scavengers immediately appear from the sand to pick the scraps. That's awesome. Also, that is the most Rey has ever done for this planet. Yeah, fuck that old lady, I guess. I'm catching on to you, JJ. This is the second scene where 2 protagonists bond while flying a spaceship. I guess it's certainly easier than having them sit down at a table and talk. And they're so excited to see each other. I miss them so much. It's a weird feeling that I was a preteen, a teenager watching these guys, and now, like, through the lens of the film, I'm older than they are. These are my children. I think the reason BB-8 gets the most consistent reactions is because of how expressive he is, with only being able to move his head and shoulders? Neck? What would you call the upper ball part? There's a bit in the TIE fighter chase where BB-8 strikes the ground and bounces, and the noise it makes is akin to a basketball. I guess now is as good a time as any to cover the credits of this film. BB-8's voice was provided by Brian Herring and Dave Chapman, but the voice consultants were Bill Hader and Ben Schwartz.
Hey, I have this new droid called BB-8, and I want him to have like personality. Like, you know, everybody loves R2-D2, but he's like, I want to put him in situations where he can feel warmth and he could be funny and he could all these things. Because you have these big scenes with Rey, and now I can talk about it finally. All these big scenes with like Daisy Ridley's character and John Boyega's character, and so. The process was at the beginning, we wrote real dialogue for him. So there's recordings of me over scenes. J.J. Abrams would show me scenes, and I would say real dialogue as BB-8.
I'm so sorry, I thought you guys were cows.
Why?
Because of the way you were talking.
You heard us talking, and then you thought we were cows.
Who am I?
Nobody asked that.
Which is probably why he sounds like that. I know me pointing at a screen and saying, this moment is funny, isn't conducive of a proper analysis. However, the droid stole a freighter, followed by Kylo Ren's pathetic temper tantrum. Have I mentioned how much I love this character? I can see why so many men and women alike swooned over him at the time. He had the pathetic Loki effect, the allure. I like this characterization way more than if he was just the new Darth Vader. The fact that he's a fanboy who feels entitled to the dark side, even if he isn't proficient in it, except for that laser he froze earlier. Everyone talks about Rey flying the ship, but Kylo's performing a force power we've never seen before, and it's fine because he's of pure blood, I guess. Even funnier that aside from losing the droid and FN to 187, he seems personally insulted that it was a girl that outmaneuvered them. He's like an incel or a 14-year-old. But you know, what's the difference? Listen, I was 14 when this movie came out, and I thought it was awesome. And I didn't become an incel even a little bit despite being ugly. But it was close for a hot minute. Cutting back to our protagonist, we get some heated conversation while Rey tries to fix the ship while refusing to describe what she needs. Like she's pointing at the only yellow thing in the pile while saying, no, that one, no. Bro, just say, hand me the yellow tape. I think how you feel about Finn is reflective of how much high fantasy you project onto Star Wars. What I love about this characterization in this movie specifically is that he is as if you got a normal dude from America in 2015 and just dropped him in the middle of Star Wars. He tells BB-8 that he doesn't speak whatever he's saying. He reacts like any of us would when faced with space adversity, including asking Rey if she has a boyfriend, a cute boyfriend. Again, how you feel about Finn and this movie is really just based on how you feel about the term cute boyfriend being spoken out loud in a Star Wars film. The BB-8 lighter thumbs up gets a huge reaction in theaters. Finn admits to BB-8 that he isn't a Resistance member, which he almost did before they were accosted by the TIE fighters. But BB agrees to help so Finn can get him back home and then bail, while all Rey wants to do is get back to Jakku. But they're absorbed into what they believe to be a First Order freighter, and they plan on releasing poison into the air to ward off the hypothetical stormtroopers, where Finn hits us with the piece of wisdom that their helmets filter out smoke, not toxins. Why? I know I'm jumping ahead, but when they're found out, they're wearing these respirator masks for like one blink and you miss it moment. And because of this, one of Finn's main mechanics in the Lego Star Wars game is that he can put on a gas mask, and no one else can do that, including Rey. Not really my point, but I do think a lot of the charm of the Lego Star Wars games comes from them needing to stretch the story so that it remains a multiplayer experience. Need I say more about Rebel Friend? What about the janitor you play as from the very start of opening up a new game of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? They just made up a guy. Can't say the same about my goat Satipo. Anyway, now Han Solo and Chewbacca are here. Chewie, we're home. Sure, okay, it's hokey. Yes, but what's ironic is that this line doesn't make me feel nostalgic for the original trilogy as much as it does make me feel nostalgic for the Force Awakens trailer. Like, whatever this line is meant to make you feel, it certainly is not, wow, remember 2014? I haven't really delved into the actual costume designs for these characters since I am in no position to talk about fashion, but I do think it is an equally important piece of the puzzle. They easily could have just dressed Harrison Ford exactly like original trilogy Han Solo, but that would be sad. You're not Han Solo anymore? Nah. I'm only him.
Part-time.
Also like the little design detail that Chewbacca's hair is graying at the ends. I don't want Chewbacca to get old. Harrison Ford doesn't miss a beat, by the way, immediately hitting the ground running as he steps foot back into Han. That's not a joke about him breaking his foot on the set of the movie. Not to keep dogging on it, but it's not like Crystal Skull where he's sort of just, I don't know, the movie feels like Harrison Ford went on SNL to play a parody of Indiana Jones. Does that make sense? Everyone always talks about the Chewie, we're home line, but never bring up that almost immediately after he says, Han Solo just stole back the Millennium Falcon out loud. I mean, it serves a purpose, as it takes this utterance for the new kids to know that this is in fact Han Solo, and that they are in fact standing inside the Millennium Falcon. I might just be making up headcanons on the spot, but like I said earlier, the movie leaves a lot up to interpretation. The fact that Finn has almost no reaction while Rey is saying this means it's possible he knew this was Han Solo. But if he knew this was the Millennium Falcon, you'd think at some point he'd tell Rey, hey, this is the Millennium Falcon. Unless, of course, he's trying to keep something from her. Interesting as well that Rey knows Han as a smuggler and Finn knows Han as a war hero, because she probably heard his story as a tale of a thief who came from nothing, joining a cause larger than him, and obviously she identified with that. And Finn was likely surrounded by First Order propaganda from a very young age, and knows Han Solo as the #1 on their hit list. He is a horror. He is not to be trusted or taken lightly. I know that Finn's defining characteristic is running away at this juncture of the story. I mean, the entire next sequence is literally running away from Rathtars, these squid mouth creature things. But it shows the incredible wherewithal of his character that he was entrenched in propaganda from the moment he could understand, with no peeks into the outside world. And the first day on the job, he immediately escapes the system. Good on him. Okay, so the Rathtars, I wish I had something profound to say about this scene. Like, I've been going back to this movie and realizing I have so many thoughts and feelings, and that this movie actually means a lot more than its surface level procedure. And I remember one YouTuber at the time referring to this scene as the mandatory Star Wars scene where nothing is developed and it just exists to be dumb fun. And I didn't want that to be true, because then it sort of feels like an analytical failing on my part. I suppose like the TIE Fighter escape and the Millennium Falcon chase on Jakku, it's an easy speed run for bringing protagonists closer together. Like, the sequence ends with Chewbacca getting hurt, so Han is forced to co-pilot with Rey, eventually realizing her potential. I guess you could say that it also sets up Han Solo's interest in Chewbacca's bowcaster, but that's honestly more of a running joke than a proper character arc. But I thought it was cool because I had a Chewbacca tactic figure as a kid, and I did rigorous research in the compendium about his weapon of choice. I mean, ironically, the most iconic piece of the entire sequence of Rathtars is the meeting with the Death Gangs ahead of the Rathtars rampage. Listen, I quote, "Tell that to Conja Club," as much as the next guy. And not to be that friend that's too woke. We've come a long way since the Asian stereotype aliens of yesteryear. But how come the only characters in the franchise allowed to be Irish are the Death Gang? I mean, more realistically, this guy's just a friend of J.J. Abrams, as he snuck a ton of his good friends into this film in tertiary roles. We haven't even gotten to Sam Wexley yet. In this movie that constantly gives chase, this gang member exists to carry intel to the First Order about Han Solo and his new ball-shaped friend. There's a bit where he's leaving the cockpit and BB-8 is in the way, and he just says, "Move, ball." And it's due to this warning that we finally have a proper meeting with the Supreme Leader Snoke in all his largeliness. We actually don't know he's a hologram until later, which is conveyed in a really subtle and cool way, especially in the debris scene. So for now, I'll just comment on how the light catches his head as he bellows into frame. You could say whatever you want about Abrams' love of lens flares, but so far they've looked cool every single time. Again, even more evidence for Hux and Kylo acting like spoiled brothers to a distant, very literally distant, father figure. Which is why this is the same scene Snoke announces to the audience that Kylo Ren's father is Han Solo. Within the same speech, he refers to Luke Skywalker as, quote, "the last Jedi," and says that if the map to him, which BB-8 is housing, by the way, I don't think I mentioned that, is completed by the Resistance, that the new Jedi will rise. That was almost a perfect game. I honestly prefer The Rise of Jedi to The Rise of Skywalker, considering what the title means for that third film. But I guess they didn't want to overdo the Jedi in these titles. I mean, if you want to talk about annoying and absurd fan service, there was a draft of Episode 9 that was actually titled Duel of the Fates. I have a lot to say about this movie, but we aren't even close to that yet. Come back in 2029, I think. All that to say, this is the first moment that the film tells you they are related. But if you've used context clues in the opening, or followed online speculation as regularly as I did, I assumed this was true going into it, but man, did the confirmation still make me grip the leather side of my seats in that theater. Snoke also refers to Kylo Ren as the Master of the Knights of Ren, whatever that means. So was he named Ren before the Knights of Ren, or is this like a title, like a leader, like Darth? Also, where the fuck are they? Looking back, this film is before Kylo Ren has finished his training under Snoke, who we find out later also isn't here. The entire movie feels like Ren was on vacation and then it was ruined by these pesky Resistance members. Speaking of, we cut back to the Millennium Falcon as Finn accidentally activates the holographic chessboard from Star Wars! And it's here we get some more info about why this trilogy kicked off to begin with. Han Solo recounts that Luke Skywalker was training a new class of Jedi, but an unnamed apprentice turned against him. Not to be too much of a prequel hater, again, but I'm really glad Han doesn't use the word Padawan here. It already sounds weird to hear him say the word Jedi. You could tell that this movie was written by someone who wrote the original films, because Han Solo referring to the Force as mumbo jumbo is honestly the most Han thing he says in this movie. The line in the movie is, "It's true. The Force, the Jedi, all of it," which is quite different from how it's phrased in the trailer. To the point where I've almost Mandela'd myself, because I watched that trailer so many times. When I rewatch this movie, I quote a lot of parts. I mean, we just went over, "Tell that to Conjic Club." Yes, I am the kind of asshole that watches this film with someone. I'm quoting it the whole damn time. They should cast me as Unkar Plutt. Also, what the hell? Luke just walked away after that. They say he might be looking for the first Jedi Temple, but still, the kind of character that can cause this much destruction in the galaxy and then just hide away? Must be a real dickhead. Which takes us to Maz Kanata's castle on planet Takodana. Rey is completely enamored by how much green there is in the whole galaxy. Boy, will she be disappointed when she finds out that every planet has one climate. She's surprised Takodana has this much green. I'd be surprised if Takodana has anything less green than this. Han Solo, erstwhile, is impressed by Rey herself. So much so that he offers her a job after telling Finn that women always find out the truth. And he makes a note to say that he wouldn't pay her well. And I know how this is gonna sound. I know how what I'm about to say is gonna sort of sound like slavery. But like, what would she need the money for anyway? Like, she's currently homeless and starving. And this guy is promising her a place on the Falcon where she'll probably share a food reserve. Hold on, do we ever actually see anyone eat in these movies? Was the bread the first time? Like, I know we've seen Cyril and his sad Lucky Charms since then. Wait, didn't Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru eat cereal? Is the galaxy's only export cereal? I had that Darth Vader mac and cheese back in the day. I know they gotta have milk products, at least. Where was I? Han Solo offers Rey his gun. And I'm doing my best to take this linearly, but this is another story beat I have totally misunderstood for years. The prevailing opinion online, as I said, is that Rey is simply too good at everything. She flies for the first time and immediately escapes the First Order. She picks up a saber for the first time and immediately takes down a Sith. And now she's given Han Solo's gun. To be fair, Kylo Ren is a little bit of a loser, who we can assume has never been in an actual fight that wasn't against someone who had their back turned or a toddler. I think the movie attempts to make a big deal about the fact that it is Han's gun, but this is like 10 minutes before they have a whole trippy dream sequence about finding Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. Like in this movie, arguably the lightsaber is more of a MacGuffin than BB-8 is, and Luke's blue lightsaber was a family heirloom passed down between generations and thus passed down through trilogies. Han Solo's gun is a gun that Han Solo uses. Quick thought experiment. Growing up, how many kids did you know had a toy of Luke's lightsaber? Think of a number. Okay. Now, how many of those kids had a Han Solo gun toy, specifically Han Solo's gun? Everyone I knew accepted that his gun was not the coolest thing about him, probably because most of them primarily played the Lego games like I did, and his gun is just a generic revolver. Is this supposed to be handing down Excalibur to the next generation? Because it feels like Han is trying to disarm himself so he has a reason to steal Chewbacca's bowcaster. The same thought experiment proves that everyone knows that the bowcaster is cooler. This elongated sequence on Takodana includes Rey wielding Han's gun, which he gives to her, I guess, because he sees himself in her. Finally, The kid I've always wanted. We just learned that this bum has an actual child out there. Maybe even more. And Finn retrieves Luke's lightsaber after Rey refuses the call. Our cast is currently made up of cowards who keep refusing their destiny. Really ballsy to have our two main protagonists of the new trilogy leading the charge completely reject the call to action for most of this movie. Masterful gambit, JJ. I'm not being facetious here. I actually do like that about these characters. I mean, we meet Maz Kanata in her Star Wars cantina. This is about when the movie really starts to just become more Star Wars. And she immediately reads everyone on this team for filth, telling Han that he belongs in the fight, Finn that he has the eyes of someone who wants to run, which he does, and has been the whole time. He plans on getting work with Grumgar. This is Grumgar. I'm really proud I remembered this name. Even though his second-hand woman is the important one who ends up calling the First Order, leading to them attacking this watering hole. But, come on. Which of these characters are you gonna remember? His name is Grumgar, which is probably why Maz doesn't really stand out that much to me. Maybe it's because she isn't in the later movies a whole lot. Maybe it's because she is motion captured and not practical. Maybe it's because they cast Lupita Nyong in their Star Wars trilogy and had her play a little gremlin thing. Or maybe, just maybe, because she just explains the character conflicts out loud. The purpose of this video is for me to share what I love about this movie while also not overlooking the bad. And this entire watering hole sequence, like, once they go in to once they leave, it just has nothing. Speaking of explaining out loud, I should probably finish my point I was making. Rey is given a gun and Finn is given a lightsaber. And this is a mistake. And I always knew this because Rey is shown from the jump to be skilled with a staff, a melee weapon requiring two hands. And Finn is a proficient shot, even inside several different ships he has never been a part of. But for this section of the movie, they're swapped. Again, this is a mistake, but I don't think it's one made accidentally. Because Rey isn't overpowered with a blaster like some seem to think. She misses most of her shots. And Finn only prevails with the lightsaber when he's rescued by the Resistance. Like, otherwise he would have lost. And as I misremembered this movie, I always assumed this was a flaw in the script, like a cinema sin. But it isn't. It's a purposeful writing trick to build up tension for the moment the saber finally reaches Rey's hand. Here's the thing though, what I'm talking about here is not me trying to desperately defend this movie. It is more of a conversation with myself to try and piece together what happened to this trilogy. I'm not gonna pretend like John Boyega wasn't given a raw deal with this Star Wars trilogy and the racial connotations of that, but it is my understanding that in this film, Finn was never meant to be the Jedi. Like, the Force Awakened in him, he is Force sensitive. Don't get me wrong, I'm not taking that away from him. But I think all of these posters and teasers and interviews were meant to lead us astray. The extent of what I knew about M. Night Shyamalan came from that Robot Chicken sketch where he's held up as the guy who loves twists that don't make any sense. But have you seen anything J.J. Abrams has ever written? Thinking back to the fan posters that people were making at the time, I think the idea behind this was an optimistic ideal that all the marketing is based around our male protagonist holding a lightsaber, and then the movie actually fakes us out, and our female protagonist ends up being the important one, the Jedi who wields the lightsaber. And we see that in the end. However, I think we gain nothing from creating a tier list of oppression of who has it worst. The ideal that the hero of the story was actually Rey, and nobody expects it because we are conditioned to think of the male movie lead star. However, it also unfortunately reads as Disney being Disney and purposefully giving John Boyega a raw deal because of his complexion. I said earlier that I'm recording these like day by day, and today they announced that the Wonder Man series is going to be dropped all at once, which I don't think they've done for any other Marvel TV series. And this show was finished at the end of 2024. It's been done. The idea is that before the reveal at the end, Rey is the next in the Jedi lineage, which is why it's important that Han gives her the gun. He wants her to be more like him, but in actuality, she is closer to the path Kylo Ren took. What is Kylo up to anyway? Oh, so that's where the Darth Vader scene in the trailer comes from. So many of these scenes I'm just remembering as trailer scenes. He goes on a whole diatribe about how he wants to finish what his grandfather started, begging the spirit of his family to show him visions again. This is almost surely just Supreme Leader Snoke manipulating him. There is no way Anakin's ghost would want his son to follow in his footsteps, which raises even more questions about this Snoke character that we never really unravel in the movies. I'm sure he walks and talks in a comic or something. We've spent long enough with this group of heroes. I think we're due for a mid-movie split up, because Finn fears what the First Order will do to him when they catch him. He confesses to Rey his origin. He was a stormtrooper who on his first battle decided he wouldn't kill for them. Again, maybe I'm bending backwards, but I think this is less realizing the horrors of the First Order and more the senselessness of war as a whole. I'm not trying to undercut everything Finn says, and I'm definitely not trying to both sides the First Order fascism. I just think the moment some minutes later when he witnesses the firing of Starkiller Base, that is meant to be the moment where he decides to stay and fight. Like, physically, he turns around and leaves his escape right before the door. This, of course, follows a rally by General Hux in front of a battalion of stormtroopers. I'm not the first person to raise questions about what the First Order actually stands for. Like, we don't really see them making any ideological moves outside of taking down the Resistance. I suppose in comparison to the Empire, they are more overtly religious. Like, the Emperor was a Sith Lord, but you got the feeling that it kind of had nothing to do with how he governed. He just kept that in his personal life. Whereas the First Order's main drive is to find the map to Luke Skywalker, presumably so Kylo Ren can kill him and complete his path to the dark side. So this entire operation is built around making this kid stronger, and I know that eats Hux up inside. And I guess hypothetically, if Snoke went away, you could still have a valuable main antagonist in either Hux or Kylo, and they definitely wouldn't need to replace Snoke with a different big bad from a previous movie. But look at the way he's pontificating. The standing arrangements, the red banners, the gesture they all pull at the end of the speech. And I thought JonTron was a Nazi. I said before that the criticism I agree with the most is that this film sort of just retreads the original Star Wars. Although I love this movie, I do think it's at its worst when it's following that roadmap. Like Starkiller Base itself. Cool name. Nice reference to Starkiller if it's intentional. But this is a Death Star. A third Death Star. I like that it's built into a planet and thus has a more snowy pine tree climate, but it serves the same purpose. They even try and up the ante by having the weapon destroy several planets at once instead of just one in the original. And while it looks good, we get another iconic J.J. Abrams lens flare. It isn't as impactful. In a literal sense, we understand this makes the weapon more dangerous than anything these characters have faced. And we see the horror on the faces of the people who are eyeing this laser before they are eradicated. But we don't know them. We don't even know what planet this is. I remember when this movie first came out that some were convinced this was Coruscant.
Coruscant?
Cut. Let's try it again.
But it isn't. It's just some other city planet. We understand the death toll of several planets being destroyed by a big laser, but the reason Alderaan carried so much weight was because it's where Leia lived, where she grew up, where her family was. What do any of these planets mean to us, other than being rubble now? All that being said, the criticism that this movie retreads a lot of tiled ground, I actually will not extend that to the First Order, because I agree that they're exactly like the Empire from the original trilogy, but the Empire is heavily based on fascist and specifically Nazi imagery, and the First Order follows that same design. I mean, look at dude's hair. So the argument that it's ridiculous that after the defeat of a fascist regime, that another fascist regime that looks exactly the same and uses the same idolatry would rise only 30 years later is ridiculous.
Thank you.
It's more likely than you think. Fuck it, man. Show JonTron on the screen again. The only confusion comes from where the First Order stand. Are they a ruling republic? Is this a fringe group of extremists? Are they sponsored by a different galaxy? We don't really know who's in charge here. Like, sure, we know that Rey and Finn lived under oppressive systems, but one of those is literally inside the First Order, and the other is a planet everyone we meet calls a junkyard. Han Solo knew his ship was on this planet and still refused to step foot there. And Rey still wants to go back because she thinks her parents might return someday. While Finn takes the firing of Starkiller Base as his moment to finally take a stand, he understands the gravity of this attack. Perhaps he even believed naively that they'd never actually use it until they did. All the while, it's actually Rey who runs away from her destiny after running through a trippy lightsaber dream sequence. I think that's what this trilogy, and by extension filmmaking in the 2010s, excels at. Visuals like this, a post-Inception world. Like, we got the Anakin dead wife mom dream in Revenge of the Sith, but that was really just like an opacity overlay. Rey hears the voices of several Jedi in her head as she sees the moment Luke Skywalker's first Jedi temple was taken down by a rogue student. Oh. So those are the Knights of Ren. Again, were they already called that when they found him, or were they other students of Luke that Ren seduced to the dark side? Where did he get the red lightsaber so fast? My favorite little bit of Force Awakens behind the scenes lore is the voice of Obi-Wan saying, "Rey, these are your first steps." Because Ewan McGregor would say in an interview on Graham Norton, lest we forget, that he was brought in to read the line, "These are your first steps." But Rey was actually taken from a line spoken by Sir Alec Guinness in the original Star Wars by splicing the line, "Don't be afraid."
Come here, my little friend. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
They YouTube pooped him. This is way better than AI. I'm still mad about this, man. They found a guy who looks exactly like young Luke Skywalker for the Mandalorian show, and they just CG'd all over his face. I just think it's neat. Also, not to turn my nose up to nostalgia, but this was the first time Ewan had talked positively, publicly about Star Wars since 2005. While I don't think the prequels are good movies, I still grew up on them. See, guys, it's okay to like things that are bad also. It was cool to see him happy for my 14-year-old self. And this is 4 years before my 18-year-old self thought that Dr. Sleep was the best film of 2019 because I was just getting into movies and I was like, whoa, The Shining. Okay, so Maz Kanata has Luke's iconic lightsaber in a box, even though the last time we saw it, it was... Can I be honest? Maybe just because it was my favorite color as a kid, but I thought his green lightsaber was cooler anyway. This lightsaber in a sealed box very literally called out to Rey, and Rey, halfway through this movie, still refuses the call to action. Okay, so we met the mentor. I guess unless Luke is supposed to be the mentor, Han keeps teaching her the wrong things. I guess we went through trials and tests, but we still haven't answered the call to adventure. So we're somewhere around here. And there's like an hour left of this movie. The First Order has arrived at Takodana. I know this shot is lifted almost directly from Apocalypse Now, but I choose to believe it's a purposeful homage. Unsure if the shot fits the same purpose. But it's this attack that gets Finn to Luke's lightsaber. These kids' destinies have been tangled, and he is given a sword to defend himself when it should have been in the hands of Rey, as she continues to miss her first shots in the forest. I don't think Finn was meant to turn to the dark side at any point, but the First Order theme sort of begins lightly in the background of the scene he is given the lightsaber, to the point where it lingers on his face as he holds it and plays a haunting melody. Maz Kanata does not explain how she got the lightsaber that, as far as we know, was floating around in space. I don't think that's a plot hole or a deep flaw in the script. I just think it's really, really funny. Because Maz Kanata as a character sticks around for the rest of this movie, at least at the Resistance base, but she's already sort of served her purpose. She's the one who pushes the saber towards Finn, assuring him that he has a way to defend himself. Wait a minute, Maz went on a whole tirade about how Han is avoiding the fight. Why is she here? If she cares so much about the Resistance, why is she spending her time here? She's not in the fight either. I guess in a trilogy that technically has 3 different mentor characters, we don't need a new 4th one. that wasn't in the original trilogy. Rey loses an influence in this movie and sets out to find another to complete her training. This is what I'm talking about, man. Rey forgets to take the safety off while Han is shooting dudes without even looking at them. I remember this moment where he sheepishly asked for Chewbacca's bowcaster and then says, "I like this." Of course I remember. It's iconic. It's the completion of his running gag. What I don't remember is Finn being saved by the same bowcaster, and then when they're captured, the First Order takes the weapon, and I know they take everyone's weapons, but it's the only one the shot lingers on and gets a reaction. I guess this entire sequence, if not this entire scene, really just ties back to the bowcaster. But Finn barely needs to be rescued. Not like these other stormtroopers. This is what I meant earlier. I refuse to believe Finn cares about freeing his brothers and sisters in arms at this juncture of the story, as he thrusts his blade into their chest and holds them close so they die. Which takes us to this trooper, the real standout. The guy who yells, "Traitor!" and then does a spin. An iconic character immortalized in funny gifs, and I anticipated every time I saw the film. I know he was later given a canon name of TR-8R, but that's just kind of like dumb fun. I don't attribute a lot of meaning to any of the extra material. I know he's like a joke character who gets shot with the most important weapon in Star Wars canon. It's just a worthy comparison that this is basically this movie's Boba Fett. A silent enemy who spends most of his time lurking in the background with maybe one or two iconic lines. Granted, he doesn't have a design that stands out against the others, but the electric weapon goes a long way, which is honestly probably why Finn is decent with the saber. I'm sure they all got basic melee training as they were being groomed for this. I just think it's a worthwhile comparison, especially in relation to Captain Phasma, who was probably supposed to be the Boba Fett figure in this, but doesn't get any scene nearly as cool or iconic as this in the entire trilogy. Like, imagine a world where TR-8R was Captain Phasma. Sure, she's still a bumbling buffoon who gets shot immediately. In this version, she'd need to survive the bowcaster. I mean, she could. She's got silver armor. But at least it sets up her rivalry with Finn more. And it's not like she already isn't a bumbling buffoon. But for now, the Resistance has come to save the day. Have I mentioned how much I love the music in this film? Poe Dameron is back, and with his very best friend pilot in the whole galaxy, Snap Wexley. I think I called him Sam earlier. I love the moment where Finn is ecstatic watching the fighting. That's one hell of a pilot! By the way, it's written as helluva in the Lego game, like one word. I guess they needed to keep that E10 rating. I think the way they get around the blood on the helmet is pretty funny too. Honestly, I stopped playing these games when they added voice acting, but they still kept it really charming. Andrew, there's a movie happening! There's no way Finn could realistically know that this hell of a pilot is in fact Poe Dameron. But I like the interpretation that he instantly knew it was him because of his flying acumen. His line, "one hell of a pilot," is admittance, after all. There's only one guy in the galaxy who can fly that good. One hell of a pilot. This movie loves tossing these stormtrooper actors around like they're rag dolls. And so do I also love it. Meanwhile, Kylo Ren catches up to Rey in the woods. He searches her mind and knows that she knows the location of the droid. But so does anybody down by the castle. Instead of striking her down where she stands, he makes her faint, picks her up, and carries her back to his ship. He says it's so he can search her mind for the location of the droid, but I think he may have found something else when he was peeking around in her mind. Something he didn't expect to find that can possibly aid him further. Finn catches a glimpse of Ren carrying her away and makes a dead sprint. For the first time in this movie, and likely in his life, he's running after something, not away from something. But do not fret, the rest of the Resistance is here. Where were you guys? You expect me to believe it was an accident you showed up right when the First Order left? The carrier opens to reveal General Leia Organa and C-3PO with his new red arm. There's a lot of feelings being exchanged here, not just because Han recounts that he saw their son. We as audience members hear the Han and Leia love theme as these characters are brought back to so many moments. While looking a little deeper, pulling back the curtain, this isn't just Leia Organa looking into the eyes of Han Solo. This is Carrie Fisher looking into Harrison Ford. Not to get parasocial, but I'm about to. Listen, I know these movies aren't filmed in the same order they're set. I mean, if the interviews are to be believed, everything they filmed with Finn and Rey in the desert came first. And we saw pictures of them sitting in a circle, not next to each other, but in a circle before shooting even began. And we know there's also table reads. But these two don't share a lot of screen time in this film, and all the emotions are held within this one condensed moment. Earlier this year, I got really into listening to Carrie Fisher's books, and normally I would hide the fact that I listen to audiobooks instead of reading them, due to insecurity, I suppose. But this one, Wishful Drinking, is not only autobiographical and read by her, but it also started out as a one-woman show. So I feel like the ideal way to engage with it is listening, hearing the story in her voice. Feel the same way about that Jeanette McCurdy book. Like, I'd much rather just listen to her recount it. I've actually kind of become obsessed with her writing, to the point where whenever I see her in a group setting, like in the interviews or cast roundup or whatever, I think, man, she's the funniest person in this room. That's crazy. They should have her write the movie. I don't pretend to be an expert in these actors' lives, but everyone knows the story of what went down on that original Star Wars set. So I reiterate, this scene is not just Leia looking through Han. This is two elder actors being faced with their 40-year situationship. Could you imagine? I'd be inconsolable. So sure, maybe they did interact on set before their moment together, but man, I doubt it. Speaking of romantic swells and unrequited love, we arrive at the Resistance base as Finn is looking around frantically and excitedly for Poe. Now is as good a time as any to really delve into their chemistry. Much has been said about Poe and Finn's dynamic, their relationship, if you will. Poe was the first person to show Finn any humanity. Finn was the first person to show Poe that love is a more powerful motivator than vengeance. There's a world where Poe takes a much darker path after watching those villagers be burned to the ground and subsequently tortured. But it was Finn that broke him out. And it's here that they finally each learn that the other is still intact, brought together by BB-8. Listen, I'm familiar with the practice of queer baiting. I've seen Succession. Worth noting, I didn't know this before, I am almost certain the lady treating Chewbacca here and also hitting on him is Succession mom, if this is in fact Dr. Colonia. And I know the difference between intentionality and my brain making up connections where there are none, when I begin to start seeing things. But Poe lets this man keep his stolen jacket while saying, "It suits you." And then he bites his lip, but the interesting part is that none of this subtext is present in the published script. And if we're peeling all the way back, Poe Dameron wasn't even supposed to make it this far. By the way, him saying he was thrown from the crash here, what are we saying? What do you mean? What do you mean thrown from the... How did you get back to an X-Wing? Because yours exploded. My headcanon on an actor level is that every little piece of homoerotic subtext between these gentlemen was entirely the doing of one Oscar Isaac. Because everything that points to it in this film was a subtle acting choice in the camp of Poe Dameron. So it is my belief that not only did Oscar Isaac campaign to be put back into this movie alive, but also secretly snuck gay subtext into his moments with Finn. Or he just really liked John Boyega in real life. Soon enough, he will write a book at Carrie's level. I'm glad he did that, and I wouldn't have it any other way, but this will have disastrous results for the next slate of films. Because Disney can publicize their first gay character every time they release a new movie, but they'll never actually go through with it. It'll either be a blink and you miss it background detail or blurry lesbians interrupted by a slug man so they can remove it for the Chinese audiences. The mere fact alone that one actor managed to totally shift the trajectory of several characters just off of charisma alone, that's gotta be worth an Oscar. That wasn't a purposeful pun. I didn't even notice what I wrote until I'm reading it out loud right now. Worth an Oscar. Speaking of complex relationships, I do think the next Han and Leia scene is noteworthy, even if it isn't quite the level of the previous encounter. Honestly, because it tells us a lot about Han in this movie. Han Solo decided to ship his only son off to train with Luke because he feared he had too much Vader in him. It's less that he didn't want to raise him and more that he didn't want to be responsible. He didn't want to mess it up. He didn't think he could be a good father. But in doing so, he staved off all responsibility in raising the boy. So much so that he believes he can't do anything to stop him if Luke already tried. To which Leia retorts back eloquently, Luke is a Jedi. You're his father. I mean, Han is Kylo's father, not Luke's father. Although, people always talk about how sacrilegious and insulting it is that Luke and Han never even got to reunite in the sequel trilogy. But did he even fuck with this guy? Like, they spent some time together, and I have a folder of ship edits on my TikTok for the two of them. But in the actual text, were they friends? Like, the person listening to this right now, how close are you with your brother-in-law? I don't know. I just feel like a legacy film like this doesn't necessarily require pomp and circumstance. Also, if we're pointing blame at somebody for not having all of the original three hang out in a scene together, it's not the director of the second movie. Like, the Millennium Falcon gets a triumphant reveal. They play a horrifying tone over Vader's melted helmet. C-3PO's return is funny. The moment before where BB-8 unveils R2-D2, I wasn't punching my chair because R2 isn't in the movie enough, because the story isn't about him. He's an emotional MacGuffin this time. If this movie had R2 rolling around the whole time, BB-8 wouldn't have gotten nearly as much time to shine. This movie isn't about Chewbacca or 3PO or R2 or Han or Leia, and I guess Admiral Akbar was there or something. Nyan-Nub. It's a movie about Rey and Finn and Kylo and sometimes Poe. It just so happens that these legacy characters are also in it. Speaking of Rey and Kylo, I love this scene too. I'm not particularly a Rey and Kylo Ren truther. I don't think it really works with the trilogy they built, at least not in the last one, but I can understand Kylo's desire to keep her around by his side. She refers to him as a creature in a mask, and he immediately drops the facade. He's a cute boy. He's Jon Snow. How they were able to make 30-year-old Adam Driver look like an emo teen heartthrob in this movie, I will never understand. I can't recount how we knew or how much we knew about Adam's character ahead of this movie, but there's a world where I walked into this movie just assuming he was like Anakin. Either he's more machine than man, or he suffered some terrible deformity, which is a rite of passage for the Sith. But no, he legitimately just wears the mask because he thinks it makes him look epic and badass, and he wants to be like Darth Vader. He's the teenager in his room making dark versions of Sonic the Hedgehog. Darker versions. So the fact that the mind melding he used so easily earlier on Poe instantly backfires as Rey aims it back at him. He doesn't try to insult her or berate her. He uses her memories and insecurities to try and extend a hand. Very literally. He thinks they're the same, which is when she manages to overpower his mind and turn his insecurities back onto him. That he'll never be as strong as Darth Vader. And then he fucking runs away. He goes to whine to Supreme Leader Snoke. But what's interesting here is that Hux uses this as an opportunity to undermine Kylo. While Kylo Ren almost seems like he's trying to convince Snoke to let him keep her. She's strong but untrained are probably the exact words Snoke has said to Kylo. Earlier in the divorced couple scene, they admit that it was Snoke who seduced Kylo Ren to the dark side, and now he's trying to do that to Rey because he sees so much hate in her. Hate that he just doesn't have. Sure, he throws an angry tantrum every now and then, most notably when she eventually escapes, but his heart isn't filled with hate. Yet. There's a great moment at the start of the scene where Kylo Ren is asking Rey how she got BB-8 to show her the map, and he uses the line, "You, a scavenger," almost like he's offended. I don't think this line is about the droid. I think he's upset and embarrassed that being strong in the Force is ostensibly his birthright. And Rey was just born and dumped into a dusty sand planet, and yet she is stronger. What a genius piece of subtle character acting. I really hope they don't undermine this by making Rey just also related to someone strong. I hope they don't make them second cousins and then also make them kiss. Which leads us to Rey's escape. Now, I hope I have made it clear before that I have no problem with Rey being skilled in hand-to-hand combat, nor do I have a problem with her being a spaceship savant. And we know by the previous scene that Rey is inherently strong in the Force. Luke's lightsaber called to her. It didn't call to Kylo. He would have found it. I have no doubts in my mind that Rey could easily overpower Kylo Ren in a battle of mind melding. But how does she know how to do this? So she uses a Jedi mind trick on a stormtrooper to help her escape. But where did she learn this? Again, I want to reiterate that I do not think it's impossible for Rey to learn this or pull this off. She's a Star Wars protagonist. She can really do whatever she wants. But her copying exactly what she sees Kylo do, that makes sense. Their minds are already linked. She didn't even think Luke Skywalker was real like an hour ago. Who taught her this? Why would you even think to do this? Like, I know from a writing standpoint, she needed a way to escape, but we know she's powerful in the Force, and also just like physically strong. There's a moment before this stormtrooper is mind tricked where he leans in to threaten her. Why couldn't she just brute force him to let her out? Who the fuck taught her how to do this? I'm so lost here. This is the only time. This is the only one I'll agree with those incel chuds with. Did she hear that Obi-Wan used to do this? Did Obi-Wan tell her when he was YouTube pooping in her head? Also, you know, it kind of really devalues the moment where she uses the Force for the first time to bring the lightsaber to her hand if she just also uses the Force here. Speaking of which, Starkiller Base here is the first glimpse we see of that snowy mountain range. I'm telling you guys, this is a Christmas movie. What I'm getting at is that it would be a lot more impactful of a moment if this was the first time she used the Force on her own. Just have her break out, man. What is this? In the Lego Force Awakens game, because every level needs to be multiplayer, like I said earlier, Rey actually keeps the Stormtrooper brainwashed and makes him help her solve puzzles. This level also ends with a Captain Phasma boss fight. It's real cool. I sure wish she did anything this cool or important in the movie I'm currently watching, but every time I praise this movie, every time I love this movie for something new and dynamic and interesting it pulls off. We gotta do the Death Star again. Don't get me wrong, I love the snowy mountain range, as I said. I love that the weapon is built into the planet. I love that it uses the powers of the local sun, so the setting physically gets darker to coincide with the weapon's dark intentions. But the Resistance gathers together to figure out how to defeat it, and they almost literally just say, this is like the Death Star, but bigger and badder. This ain't your grandpa's Death Star, this one has trees! Which ultimately amounts to another trench run. X-Wings blasting through the base. Red 40 standing by. Red 1 standing by. I wonder what the original version of the scene was gonna be if Poe Dameron was actually supposed to remain dead. What would Sam Wexley be in charge? I keep saying Sam Wexley. He sure takes charge in the meeting, but then how would we get this shared glance between Poe and Finn as he puts his hand on his shoulder? As he lightly pats his shoulder once. All right, fine. I'm not crazy. The plan is in motion, and everyone is rolling out. We get our third and final confrontation between Han and Leia. Spoilers. It's real cute. She says she always hated seeing him go, and he retorts that's why he left, is so that she would miss him. If you see our son, bring him home. Means more than it implies. Because Kylo Ren isn't their son. The boy underneath the mask is. If you see our son refers to his bare face, which Han Solo does end up seeing. So we make the jump to lightspeed so Starkiller's trackers won't know they're coming. Some people feel very strongly about the lightspeed in this movie. I was just ecstatic to see it after there were no lightspeed jumps in the entirety of the prequels, even though Kylo Ren senses them immediately. I've seen this movie almost a dozen times over a decade. I don't think I ever noticed that he whispers, "I'm Solo," to himself. A real cornplate moment, marching on foot through thick snow. I have a line here about how it doesn't snow in December anymore, but the one day it did, I immediately went to go and film, so that's just not even true. It's revealed Finn's job on Starkiller Base was actually sanitation, which, while funny, is also the only glimpse we get into where the First Order stands at this juncture of the story. They're so desperate for troopers that they're deploying janitors for what they know at the time to be their most important mission. Like, their one goal is to get the map to Luke Skywalker. They can't have any actual power beyond fear. And it's not like traditional war where they slowly take over land until winter covers most of the map. They've taken over one planet and obliterate every planet in the system closest to them, which makes the Resistance base their next target. This, in tow, also tells us a lot about their army. I mean, they wouldn't need to charge up the big scary laser if they just went to that one planet with TIE fighters. But they know that they'll probably lose that fight. They threw everything they had on Takodana, and they had to retreat. The First Order is weak and wounded, but Supreme Leader Snoke is willing to risk all of the troopers just to stop the rise of the Jedi. Also, he takes Hux with him too. I reiterate, this movie really, really, really loves tossing these stormtroopers around like they're nothing. And goddamn if I don't love it too. Finn said that they don't have a plan, and he only got them on the planet so that they could save Rey, but it's okay because they can use the Force. That's not how the Force works. The theater erupts into laughs, and everyone tosses their popcorn in the air. Some guy does a backflip and the whole train claps. Well, Finn's shtick begins to run kind of dry when they capture Phasma, who folds under no pressure whatsoever. Is this a genius piece of character work, or does the Silver Fox not have any character whatsoever? Like, Finn's not even pointing his gun at her anymore. He's all the way over there. She just rush him. Why doesn't she do anything? My point being, Han Solo never stops knocking it out of the park. Earlier, I said that this movie is structurally about this new class of kids, but this film would not work nearly as well if Han Solo was not in it. I hope they bring him back for the sequel, but luckily Rey is holding her own just fine. Also, during the trench run, C-3PO says, "Thank the Maker!" So, like, Darth Vader, that's the little dude who made you, and he was not a great guy most of the time. I want to be so real with you guys. I love this movie, warts and all, but I have nothing to add to this trench run. They were never really my favorite part of these movies anyway. Nor were they my favorite parts of the Lego games. Like, they don't break into Starkiller Base until the ground team gets set off explosives, placing them meticulously as we focus on Chewbacca's weird human fingers I forgot he had. Take that off the screen. There's also a little moment where Chewie picks up Han's snow coat that he threw down earlier, and Han looks perplexed, and that's because this actually wasn't supposed to happen, or as the story goes. The actor inside the suit, Peter Mayhew, just improvised this bit. It's not super important, but as anything Chewbacca does in this movie, I feel like as more and more main characters die, the fans and maybe the actors in the suits wanted larger roles for these characters, but Chewbacca was never a very nuanced character. No, what speaks to me above all else about these movies, about this movie, is the human drama. No fighting, no flying, just two characters talking on a precarious walkway with no railings. Ironically, this is the greatest reference to the original trilogy in this film.
I just want a railing, you know? One railing, right here.
Yeah, I know. I've almost fallen over that thing so many times.
In a movie matched by a powerful score, Han's scream of "Ben!" echoes throughout the vacant crevice of the base, breaking through to Kylo Ren, this likely being the first time he's heard his birth name in years now. Inversely, Kylo Ren only refers to the man standing in front of him as Han Solo. No warmth, no familiarity, nobody's father, just infamous space scoundrel. Once he removes his helmet again, it's not like he's hugging and skipping and calling him dad, but he also seems slightly warmer. Like, for the first time, Ben actually makes his appearance in this movie. I don't love the Obi-Wan show, but I do love how they tried their best to flesh out Leia and Kenobi's relationship, because why would she name her son after a guy she didn't know? You think Han remembers the old man who flew with him and then disappeared? Anyway, Han Solo dies in this scene. I'm ripping that bandage off right now. One, because I have a lot to say about the moments leading up to it, and two, spiritually, I feel like I always knew this was destined to happen. Like, even beyond the fact that it was literally spoiled for me all the way back in middle school by my buddy Ranch, which I never forgave him for. But to give him a little less slack, I had been following the production of this film from the moment Disney bought Lucasfilms. More realistically, from the moment I saw that Muppet walking across stage. And even prior to that, I was internet savvy enough to know by now that Harrison Ford famously wanted his character to die several times over across multiple Star Wars films. To the point where there was an unsubstantiated running joke that he only came back for this new movie so that Han Solo could die. And well, we got what he wanted. But I want to push back on the narrative that this movie is just non-stop feel-good nostalgia fest, because I feel like everything that the Legacy cast does here is to serve the new crop of characters. Except for the bowcaster running gag. That's just there for fun. Okay, so the scene. Kylo Ren is at a halfway point. Not only between Ben Solo and Kylo Ren, but the light and the dark side as well. We hardly ever see a character who struggles with the pull of the light side, like how so many fall to the dark. We've seen grand sacrifices in the name of redemption, but nobody ever feels the pull of the light. It's all to serve their own selfish desires. So the fact that his emotional attachment, his father, is the only thing, as far as he believes, connecting him to the light side. He believes he needs to snuff it out, which is brilliantly portrayed as the very literal light fades from the scene and is replaced by a piercing red. Again, like I said, Starkiller Base is trying way too hard to just be a bigger Death Star. We do not need another Death Star in a Star Wars movie. But I feel like so many fail to realize the principled application of the light source. The planet siphons the power of a local sun, like Kylo Ren retrieving power from snuffing out his light. The rest of the scene on Starkiller Bases after Han's death are dark, cold, and uncaring, like that of Kylo Ren. I've played up the festiveness of it all and how much I love this movie as a Christmas movie, but the snow and the ice is horrifying and uncaring. We'll get into it in a second, but the fact that only after this moment does Rey refer to Kylo Ren as a monster again, and he doesn't even need to wear his helmet anymore. Not to get ahead of myself yet again, but that's also why the direct sequel to this one destroyed his helmet. He doesn't need to try and look like a monster anymore. He is that monster. And then the third movie just has a scene where he meticulously super glues it back together. Does JJ even remember the points he was trying to make in his own movie? Kylo Ren says, I want to be free of this pain, and I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And Han Solo seems to understand. And here's where the film goes up to interpretation again. Do I believe that Han would purposefully allow his son to fall to the dark side and ultimately cause the death of several friends? No. But do I believe that the man who's done nothing but run from his own mistakes and responsibility, do everything in his power to relieve the pain he's helped inflict on his only child? I believe he might. Or maybe this scene really is a shock. Maybe Kylo Ren was just trying to get close to him. Maybe the light fading happened internally, in real time. Or maybe the pain he's feeling, he believes to be the pull between light and dark. And he wants to believe that once his father is dead, that the pull will cease. But it doesn't. It never really does. Because he has something new to pull him to the light. But fuck Chewbacca, I guess. Imagine shooting your best friend's kid in the kidney. With the coolest weapon in all of Star Wars fiction, I might add. Like I said, Chewbacca doesn't really have an emotional wrinkle here. But he's basically this dude's uncle. Maybe even his godfather. Everyone escapes and the merry band end up in the deep, dark, snowy forest. Merry Christmas, everyone. And there was actually originally a scene between Han's death and this scene in the forest, which shows how Finn and Rey got to this part of the woods. And I've often heard people say that they really should have left this scene in because it explains how they got there. But not only do I think it would really mess with the tone of the previous scene, but I feel like it would raise even more questions. Like, for example, how Kylo Ren also got there at the same time. He wasn't driving anything, and he's got a gaping hole in his stomach that is currently leaking blood. This is the second blood moment I was referring to. I do my best not to dignify power scaling with the response, because it isn't even real media analysis. But you know, all throughout this video, I've been bringing up arguments from chuds who really their strongest argument is that girls have cooties. Power scaling is basically just death battle. And I like death battle, but I don't think who would win what fight should really take precedence in a story.
Who would win in a fight if Galactus fought the Hulk? Or if Thor fought Iron Man? And there's one answer to all of that. It's so simple. Anyone should know this. The person who'd win in a fight is the person that the scriptwriter wants to win.
All that being said, Kylo Ren absolutely loses this fight, of course. Not only do we know his training hasn't been finalized, but again, he was just shot in the kidney with a bowcaster and presumably walked all the way here. But that's what sticks out about these characters and why I fundamentally don't agree with the Mary Sue diagnosis, whatever that means. These kids, this trio, sorry Poe Dameron, is the heart of the story, and should have been the heart of the trilogy. For all the flack this movie gets for its over-reliance on references and fan service, I believe that this is the best scene in the film, and it doesn't feature a single legacy character or location. Kylo Ren threatens the two by saying it's just us now, And he's right. This is the proving ground. All three of them now have to fight with everything they've learned. And even then, they still have some learning to do. Rey immediately reaches for the gun and pays the price for it. Finn takes up the lightsaber, and he holds his own well enough. I mean, I assume every new stormtrooper received hand-to-hand combat training. Worth noting that Kylo also refers to Finn as traitor here, just like that melee trooper did earlier in the film. Kylo Ren believes he is owed this lightsaber. He should be holding it. It's his birthright, not this turncoat with no real battle experience. And that comes through in the fight. I know I said I'd do my best to hold off on the prequels in this section, but I promise I only bring it up if it's integral. Everyone who talks about these movies, even the people who don't like them, always end up saying some version of, oh, but the fight scenes are cool, and it makes me roll my eyes every single time. I'm gonna get a brain strain. You mean to tell me that the fight with the most weight and gravitas you can think of is the one where they're all doing over-choreographed flips? Listen, I think Darth Maul looks sick as hell. I like the song they play during this scene. Duel of the Fates is widely accepted to be one of the best pieces in the entire saga. They were gonna name a movie after it. But to me, the best part of that fight, of that scene, is when they slow it all the way down. The moment Qui-Gon has already fallen, and Obi-Wan has to sit there and wait patiently to collect himself ahead of his first major battle alone. I don't care how many flips they do if the weapon they're holding feels like a glow stick at a rave with no real weight. In Kylo Ren and Finn's fight, not only is there a weight to all of Ren's anger-filled strikes, but the red and blue lightsabers ostensibly have their own characters here. Just the way that they both illuminate the faces of the characters and it forms an amorphous purple as they clash. Fuck it! Forget all the lens flare jokes. I love this scene. I love this movie. Merry Christmas! Of course, Finn is incapacitated by his former boss as he extends his hand out to pull the legacy lightsaber from the snow. But instead, the music swells, it whisks past his face and into the hand of the homeless sand scavenger Rey, who comes from nowhere and no one. She has just shattered Kylo Ren's entire worldview. You see how more impactful this would be if she didn't Jedi mind trick that guy? And then we get some more trench run, yada yada, who cares? Why isn't this guy dead yet? But hey, the transitions are cool. This is the shit I'm talking about, man. The way the blades physically cut through the branches and bramble. The fact that Kylo Ren and Rey are both absolutely drenched. You really need these close-up clashes. The moments when the two blades collide. And then all that's left is eye contact. The close-up on Ren's face lit by his sporadic crackling saber. You can see the anger in his expression. He's insulted. He tries to appeal to her desire for belonging because that's always what enraptured him. Kind of feels like the Knights of Ren should be here for this. He acknowledges her strength and offers her an opportunity. He says she should be trained properly, whether he means by him or by his Supreme Leader. After this fight, we actually get a final moment with said Supreme Leader as Hux abandons his post to go reconcile. He is ordered to find Ren and bring him back to Snoke for his training. I mean, if the pacing of the movie is anything to go by, he really just needs to take one step outside and he'll find him. And it's this bit that I wanted to dig into, the reveal of the towering figure's hologram. Like earlier, we see that the hologram turns on and off, but in this bit, the falling debris interacts with the static visage, revealing something only unknown to the audience. His hologram-ness led to a bevy of fan theories, even more than who Rey is related to. I mean, she's one of the few characters that's allowed to have an accent, so Obi-Wan was the top of that list. I was always of the interpretation that she came from nobody, and thus was not trained for this, was not destined for this life. I mean, she rejects Kylo Ren's offer by tapping into the Force that has awakened within her. I truly do not know how people misinterpret this. I suppose that's what happens when everything is a mystery box. Hey, what if Snoke is actually Mace Windu? Surely a Jedi Knight of his caliber could survive a fall from that height. I mean, Obi-Wan jumped out of a Coruscant window on purpose. What if Snoke is Jar Jar? What if he's Darth Plagueis? My favorite fan theory, that I'm still a little upset to this day, that isn't true.
Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?
I was always attached to the theory that Snoke was small and pathetic, the supreme leader, an inverse of Yoda from Empire. But unlike the little green creature, he was ashamed of his stature. So he made a purposefully gigantic hologram of himself to intimidate his followers in the First Order. And if you asked me in 2016, I'd go as far as to assume Kylo Ren hasn't even seen Snoke in the flesh. or lack thereof. I wanted him to look like old David Tennant from Doctor Who, where he just like becomes a little Googa.
Compensating? For what? Compensating for something.
Speaking of losing flesh, Rey temporarily incapacitates Kylo Ren by slicing his face, which ultimately led to another follow-up decision in later movies I was disappointed by. Listen, we'll talk about The Last Jedi soon enough, and I liked that movie, but I also loved the hypothetical dramatic irony of Kylo Ren wearing a Darth Vader-esque helmet that he doesn't need to cover up any deformity, to then receive a deformity after the removal of said helmet. But no, I suppose we can't cover up teen heartthrob Adam Driver's gorgeous, gorgeous face. Let's put a line through it. Oh, but think of the fan fiction writers who will be turned off. Bro, Phantom of the Opera has been around for generations. Rey does not fully defeat Kylo Ren, as the ground very literally splits between them to separate them, like that one scene in the Fast and Furious movies, but this one happened due to directorial decision and not because both actors refuse to look weak in any scene. What is this? Professional wrestling? Oh, right. The Millennium Falcon escapes with our beaten and battered heroes, and the important figures of the First Order escape themselves. All while Starkiller Base, after several orchestrated attacks fueled by the power of the sun, the base itself implodes on itself and becomes a sun of its own. The circle of life and death.
Welcome, new galaxy!
When can I play as Luigi? For some reason, I remember this victory scene after when they return to the Resistance base being way longer. But on this watch, it really glides by. Maybe because I knew what was going to happen. Maybe it's significantly less triumphant than I remember. Maybe I've simply grown a deeper respect for this film in my old age. Like Leia and Rey share simple glances and still understand everything the other is feeling. Rey was never close to Leia. They haven't even met, but she saw a parental figure in the only man who ever showed her any amount of camaraderie. And now, after spending probable hours on Starkiller Base, she knows everything she needs to about Ben Solo and how this family has been torn apart all over again. Rey says goodbye to an incapacitated Finn as the Resistance celebrates a small victory, but continues to lick their wounds. You'd think that the tonal whiplash would make this scene really abrasive, but I think it makes it even more realistic. Like, yeah, why would the rest of the Resistance care that Kylo Ren has fully turned to the dark side? They already thought that guy was pure evil. Han Solo wasn't a part of the Resistance. Like, imagine this from Poe Dameron's perspective. Sure, his new best friend is incapacitated, comatose even, but he just blew up a planet-destroying weapon, and the rest of the First Order either ran away or exploded. Does he even know who Han Solo is? So it's simultaneously exciting and melancholic, something we in the film analysis business like to call bittersweet. Yep, that's a phrase I just invented. Check out my Letterboxd account where I gave Begonia 3 stars. Inversely, R2-D2 finally wakes up and completes the map to his former master, Luke Skywalker. I really don't like that word usage. Like, it's cute when it's BB-8 and R2, who are like a small dog and a mischievous cat, respectively, but when full-blown dude C-3PO is calling people master, and he's not allowed into bars. I'm not starting this discourse again. Anyway, it's unclear on whether R2 was biding time or he legit just figured it out. Because when I first watched this film, I assumed that somehow R2 either sensed a great Force awakening or was alerted via Luke, who also sensed the Force awakening. But C-3PO says R2 found Master Luke. So like, what was he running calculations in there? Regardless, Rey changes her clothes for the first time, presumably ever. I didn't mention it, but I think it's really funny that the kid version of Rey we see in her dream flashback has the exact same hair and clothes, just smaller. And she takes off in the Millennium Falcon with Chewbacca and R2-D2, one of which is impactful, because the whole movie she was co-piloting with Han as Chewie was injured on the back, and now she has to co-pilot with the Wookiee because of Han's tragic passing. And this is a real testing ground moment. Again, because Chewbacca never flew with this girl. I doubt she was any help while flying back to the Resistance base while holding Finn's dying body in her arms. A lot of characters get dramatic zoom-ins when they return to the Falcon. R2 is not one of them. Who cares? He's a droid. We don't even care about the real dude inside the robot. And now we get to see that mountainous island that was caught in several photographs of on-location filming. But who would have thought it would be all the way at the end of the movie? Rey scales a rocky cliff face as a reprise plays of her theme from the first act of the film. This time more triumphant, than inquisitive, but still with a twinge of curiosity for a place she's never been to, encountering a man she's never met. A figure draped in cloth robe turns around to face her, yet still obscuring his face. When he gets a look at her, he removes his hood to reveal that this is in fact an aged Luke Skywalker. She extends the old man's lightsaber to him, but before he can react, the music begins to swell, the camera swings rapidly around the two of them, and then credits. And when I first saw this, that cold night, snow on the ground, December 18th, 2015, the first showing of 5 I would attend across the rest of the winter, I walked out of that theater excited. Not only for my shared experience of seeing my first Star Wars film in theaters, but also the future of this trilogy that would lead throughout my teenagers into adulthood. So many questions raised by just the final scene alone. Hey, I got one. Where do you go from here? You end your film, a film set in a world where kids are kidnapped and groomed into a new fascist regime, where villagers are gruesomely burned, where scavengers have to work to the bone just to survive. A movie where the son, the offspring of Leia Organa and Han Solo, has been seduced to the dark side after a failed attempt to train him by his uncle, the Jedi Master, the last Jedi, Luke Skywalker, where his droid is asleep, where his friends are scattered, and everyone is miserable as a new Sith Lord rises to power. A world where all hope is lost. And he's just fucking here. But don't get me wrong, dear viewer, this is not a complaint about The Force Awakens. This is actually a defense of The Last Jedi. I tricked you, this one isn't even my favorite in the trilogy. It's actually this one. Luke Skywalker would not cut himself off from the Force. Luke Skywalker would not place himself in isolation. Luke Skywalker would not admit failure or give in to fear. Okay, man, I trust that you believe that. But for a second, imagine you are Rian Johnson, writer and director of the next film in this haphazardly planned trilogy, and you are dropped into a world where all of this horror is constantly happening. Planets are being wiped out by the handfuls, and the movie ends with the protagonist of the original trilogy twiddling his fucking hairy old dick on a fuck-off island. And I ask you, what explanation do you write? He wouldn't throw his lightsaber. Why the fuck not? I mean, he let his male best friend die. The father of his only nephew, his flesh and blood. But if you want to hear my thoughts about the sequel to the 2015 film, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, I don't know, wait like 2 years? Hopefully the Star Wars fans on TikTok that consume the movies solely through hype edits edited in CapCut don't kill me by then.
Listen, I know I've been rather abrasive throughout this project. I choose to use the word defensive. Like in 2015, a 14-year-old first entering high school, I guess, I was rocking with Steven Universe and The Force Awakens, and I was still playing Minecraft at peak cringe unpopularity and playing Sun and Moon on the 3DS, and just in general, the entire lifespan of the Wii U. Let me tell you, I was fighting for my life every fucking day of my life. I mean, it didn't help that I was online every fucking day of my life. So I thought enough time has passed, I mean, it's been a decade, that online discussion isn't nearly as poisoned, and I could, in a fair way, without pulling any punches, talk about a movie that I really love. Because love is complicated. It makes people do crazy things. It makes people sit in the middle of the snow when they're already sick. It's not like I can get more sick. Because I don't think you need to think a film is perfect or flawless to love it. You could call it blinding nostalgia, and to be fair, I do think there is a little bit sprinkled in there. But to me, I think it's more a game of comparison. Like, if we're being objective, like I said I was going to be, you gotta hear me out and just, even if you don't like The Force Awakens, from a filmmaking, from a production standpoint, it's leagues better from the slop we're getting now. This video was originally going to end with me actually going back and covering the first season of Star Wars Rebels, but I think I actually want to save that, and by save that, I think I mean if I want to make a Mandalorian and Grogu video next year, I think it would be better if I didn't know who Zeb was at all. I mean, there's a number of releases I didn't cover in my timeline from 2012 to 2015.
Disney Infinity 3.0 was based around 4 distinct lines of Star Wars figures from different Star Wars eras. The third one was revolved around Force Awakens. And then the third one was Star Wars Rebels. Okay, so then of the 8 figures, half of them are from the original trilogy. I don't know if this is a valid complaint, because who do you even add beyond Kylo, Poe, Finn, and Rey? I really wanted to play as Sam Wexley. I feel like me playing the Lego game really aided my love for this film a little bit. Not that it changes anything about the picture itself, but it does give me a comprehensive guide to every named character that appears in this movie. Like R2-KT. The pink astromech droid created for and named after a real child who battled brain cancer. During the game's credits, it also rewards the player with additional scenes of Finn being trained in the middle of the film. For whatever reason, Finn only gets proper love in these Lego properties. The point I was getting at is that I want to hold off on talking about Toys to Life for now. I think I want to do it in proper order. And there's really no reason to play Battlefront 2015 right now. Before I escape from the lower decks of this abandoned ship, by the way, I didn't dress up like Hitler even one time. I've gone through several videos from several YouTubers from the 2010s, but there's one unsung hero that I'd like to really focus on for a second, who was indispensable to making this project. Before I even began writing, before I even revisited the movie itself, when this video was still in the planning stages, my first thought instantly is that I needed to rewatch Hello Greedo. Hello Greedo is a channel dedicated to exclusively talking about Star Wars, who got a start in 2011, which is also coincidentally when I started watching. I wasn't allowed to have a YouTube account, so I couldn't subscribe to anyone, but I remember being there at ground zero as the number broke into the 4 digits. And then the 5, and then the 6, kicking off the channel with the series comparing and contrasting the changes made in the Star Wars Special Edition DVD releases, which I actually think I found by looking at a different article about the same issue. This was the first person who helped me to understand that the franchise I grew up loving isn't all perfect, but never without making me hate it, because that's the thing. Like Hello Greedo before me, I don't hate the prequel films. They mean a lot to me, and obviously I'm very nostalgically attached. But Hello Greedo is the one, especially in the recent years, I've seen talk about every Star Wars movie with such diplomacy and love, in an internet that would soon be poisoned by grifters whose sole goal was to profit off the hatred in movie discussion, who believed that every issue with this trilogy stemmed from a woman and a black man. Hello Greedo simply and eloquently explained what parts he did and didn't like. And I was there every week for new updates on the film's production and release. Almost every breaking news segment I covered in this video was also covered on the Hello Greedo channel. It's a channel that's been around for over a decade that I never really hear get proper flowers, and I imagine part of that is just growing away from YouTube in the least parasocial way possible. I don't know how else to describe this without sounding weird. It's very cute to see YouTubers I used to watch when I was a kid having kids of their own, and you slowly see them either like pull back their production or just pivot to the center of the universe being their children. I'm not a family guy, nor do I think I ever will be, but I think I do understand that there's a moment where your YouTube channel is the most important thing in your life. And then you have a child and you're like, oh, okay, actually this kid is the most important thing. I looked up additional details on Hello Greedo just to confirm that he did in fact have a kid, and I'm not just misremembering that. And the top result was this page on the EFAP podcast wiki. Mahler and his crack team of women took a look at Hello Greedo on their second part of EFAP 69 after finishing their coverage of Jenny Nicholson. For those of you who haven't had the displeasure, the EFAP podcast is a show from that one screenshot complaining about Jenny Nicholson's Joker review that has nearly 12 hours long. So overall, my point of this several hour video of these multiple pages about The Force Awakens is that Mahler is a fat loser. Anyway, go show your support towards Hello Greedo, and let's flush away this current top search result. Thank you, Greedo. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, Star Wars.
I wish I could tell you that it's upsetting or surprising that a pastime, a hobby, an interest, something I really like, has been taken over by middle-aged man babies, but I mean, you guys have seen me talk about Smash Bros. God forbid we try and foster a community of positivity. But that's really all I wanted to say about The Force Awakens. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll cover the sequel films to this movie 2 years from today. But for me, I've got a invitation in purple I need to accept. I mean, statistically, hosts of this show only get about a month or so of freedom before they're found out. And they haven't found me yet. Whether that will be on my terms or not is yet to be seen. I don't really know where I'm going next. I don't know what's next for a guy like me. I have a rough idea if the event goes well. You'll see me again. But they won't.